5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Indy Wrestling Experience, where we talk about all things related to the Indy Wrestling Experience. I, of course, am your host, Bob Richards, and today I am very excited. This is going to be a very exciting show. We have a lot of interesting things to talk about, from allegations leveled against Kevin Ryan of Action Wrestling to an alleged no-show or two from Matt Riddle. We have Rich Buchholtz coming on the show to review Redemption 4, which was last Saturday. And he's going to be going over that show. He's going to be talking about Homecoming 3 and Destiny 5 in relation to, I guess you could say, post-Redemption. How did Redemption affect the card for these two shows coming up? You'll hear Rich talk about that as well. But I am most excited to finally be able to introduce another voice to this podcast, a co-host, a friend for way longer than I ever want to admit, Jon Adkins. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, man, what's going on? It's great to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to have you here. And like I said, it's good to have somebody to talk to.
Hey, man, that's what we do.
So, Jon, you and I have been wrestling fans since we were knee-high to a grasshopper. And
it's been a few years.
It certainly has. So why don't you tell the folks, introduce yourself to the folks, tell them how you got interested in wrestling and maybe a couple things you remember from when you were a kid, something. Just introduce yourself.
Sure, man. So, hey, everybody, how you doing? My name's Jon, Jon Adkins, friend of Bob's, been friends with Bob for, and when I say this, I mean this, most of my life. As he said, it's, one of those things that, really don't want to admit that we're that old. So, we've been watching this world of wrestling for a long, long time. I, as a kid, didn't really get into wrestling until one summer visiting my bestest of friends, Bob. And there was this magical thing he had called WrestleMania. My eyes were opened and fell in love. So, feels like 100 years later and a lot of memories. And we are still here and still watching the product. And Bob and I still shoot the breeze on it every chance we get. I've pretty much consumed a little bit of everything. I know a little bit about a lot, but not a lot about a lot. So Bob and I are going to get into, what we can pry out of my memory.
So let me start with this first. As a kid, after you saw WrestleMania and you got into wrestling, were you an NWA or a WWF guy?
I think where we grew up, I always kind of we were right on that line. We really were between, the WWE, WWF territory and NWA. I always kind of found myself, I think, a little more drawn to the NWA. WWE was great. It was all colors and pop and, the bright lights and the characters. NWA was a little more realistic. And I think that's kind of what drew me to that. But by no means did I not enjoy the WWE, WWF. That was what I think we all cut our teeth on. And what we all know today as really the prototype for what we watch today.
No, absolutely. And in addition to NWA and WWF when we were kids, there were others. Did you get to regularly see? I mean, we had Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan on our TVs all the time as a kid, but any other promotions that you got to watch regularly?
Right. None that we didn't really have cable growing up. That was what I would come to your house for. So, every once in a while I may catch a Mid-South, may catch, like an old UWF, Sting and the Blade Runners and Magnum TA before they got all kind of absorbed into the NWA. That was pretty much it. Anything outside of that I knew would have come from, the occasional magazine that, I leafed through at the store while my mom was grocery shopping. You know what I mean? It wasn't really until the advent of the early internet where I could kind of get out and expand my reach of what I could consume, that I really kind of took off. And I think that's where you and I both kind of cemented this love, really, more for the just quest of more information. Give me more. The old Ryback, feed me more.
My God, if that's not true. Wow. And that's exactly, I did the same thing. I mean, I was doing the same thing, leafing through the magazines, getting my grandmother to buy me a wrestling doll because my parents wouldn't, all that stuff. So in addition to NWA, WWF, were there any other kind of promotions that you got to see on a regular basis?
Not particularly. UWF we would catch, I guess once they, Mid-South kind of turned into UWF there. Other than that, it really wasn't until probably the late 80s, early 90s when I kind of started getting into the more of the independent scene, and really kind of seeing what was out there. So for me, my basis is basically, the big two, we'll call them the big three once, WCW kind of came in. Occasionally you may catch a WCCW, but for the most part, no, it was just the big guys of the 80s.
Right. Well, some one of those territories, some big news came out this week, some sad news, and that was the death of Colonel De Beers, who spent a lot of his, I'll say this, my knowledge of Colonel De Beers is from AWA in the 80s, although I know he had quite the career before that. I know, watching back, I've now seen him in Mid-South under a different name. So I know he was well-traveled before then. But did you have any memories of Colonel De Beers?
Yeah, I definitely in the 90s caught some, the replays, the AWA. I want to say it wasn't at one point, I believe it was ESPN2 played, would play some old AWA, and would see some stuff. I really remember the big feuds that I remember seeing him through, would have been Snuka, Sergeant Slaughter, towards the end of the 80s. I remember they had a little spat. And the big one I really remember is, I'm doing my air quotes here, big Scott Hall, the Jack Magnum PI of the AWA, just really putting on some good matches. What I, as a kid, most remember about Colonel De Beers, that even for the 80s, him being pretty racially divisive. I remember there was I believe it was GCW. There was a deal he was wrestling, I believe, Iceman Parsons, and he wouldn't allow a black referee. And his name, I apologize, is slipping my mind. But wouldn't wrestle if he was the ref. Just things like that. That even for the time as a kid, I remember going, "Whew, that's right? Kind of rough."
I mean, you think about now. I mean, the entire gimmick was, I'm a white guy from South Africa in favor of apartheid. I mean, good Lord, you can't
exactly.
You can't do that now. You shouldn't have done it then.
No, you definitely couldn't do it now. And like I said, even as a kid growing up in the mid 80s, that not that it's ever been right, but certainly more socially, I'm not going to say acceptable, but socially not condemned as it is today.
You could get that kind of heat then. You can't get that heat now.
You could do that heat. You could do that heat. And now, no way. But even back then, I remember as a kid just thinking, man, this may not be for me.
Absolutely. Well,
so this is where I'm going to test you. Give me a fun fact about De Beers, because I've got one lined up for you. I want to see if you've got the same one.
You're going to have to hit me, because I don't have too many, honestly.
Okay. So, do you remember what was Colonel De Beers' finisher?
No.
Okay. Here we go, guys. So his finisher and who it's linked to today. Now, who it's linked to today has added, absolutely a little flair to it. but Colonel De Beer's finisher was called a pancake pile driver. So if you look this up and you find the pancake pile driver, if you just stepped over the arms, you're going to notice it's a styles clash.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Now, who would have thought that you could link Colonel De Beers to AJ Styles? Go figure.
Oh gosh, that's incredible. Yeah, I had no
hey man,
idea.
like I said, I know a lot about a little about a lot. That's about it. And none of it makes any sense in the real world, but to me, I got all kinds of little tidbits.
Yeah, we rubbed off on each other like that as a kid. I'm the same way, man. Like, there's lots of little fragments of memories and stuff, but
right.
But
yeah, rest in peace, man. Rest in peace.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to something else. So a minute ago, I was telling the folks that we got Rich Buchholtz coming on later, and I already pre-recorded that interview without you. Sorry, buddy.
That's all right.
But there were some things that I'm gonna talk about with Rich later in the show on that interview, and I don't know. I kind of wanted to bat it back. I mean, this is the part of the show where before you were a part of it, that I would just sort of talk about the news. So let's you talk about some news.
All right, man. Let's do it.
Few things, 3 things actually for the week that I'm going to talk about with Rich later, and I'll just take them in the order that they are on our little outline here. And I'll start with Matt Riddle.
All right.
I don't know how much of this you got to see, and I know that you didn't see some of it because I think the text messages were deleted. But essentially, the story coming out of Ohio is that Matt Riddle was supposed to appear for the promotion on Saturday, and the promoter, and he posted screenshots of the text message exchange he had with, I believe it was Matt Riddle's girlfriend or his wife. I'm not sure which one she is now, but either way.
Now, let me ask you: is that the Michelle Gray? Is that, because when reading through, it kind of sent me in a circle. It looks like this Michelle Gray may be some sort of new representation for Riddle. I don't know. Seems to be that's who the promoter was, woke up that morning to text messages trying to deal with for the extra show money, or I'm sorry, that extra travel money. But then some of the other texts that came through, it looked like were from Misha Montana, who is the current girlfriend.
Yes.
So I don't know. Is it a spot where maybe he's gotten some new representation and they're flexing a little muscle? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. And I think I remember seeing the text and the name Misha. I don't remember whether I saw Michelle's name on some of that stuff, but there was some back and forth there. I'm honestly, I think the texts were deleted, but now it sounds like you found them.
I found a few. Now they were still, they were, pulled. You could tell, I couldn't read the text, but it definitely gave me the posters, who posted them. But like I said, so the promoter seemed like he was dealing originally with, Michelle Gray, trying to get the travel money, the extra $2,000 for Riddle to get on the plane. When it seemed to fall apart is when the girlfriend, Misha Montana, seemed to jump on Facebook and start throwing out some allegations. And that's when the, all the lawyer speak started to come out about, who's, defaming who, libel and whatnot, suits, countersuits, all the fun stuff.
Right. Yeah. I did see those posts. They started fighting a little bit.
Right. So I'm not sure, any way you look at it, it's kind of terrible to hold up a promotion like that last minute. But it's Riddle. It's it's not his first rodeo. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's not the only time. First of all, let me say this, and I say it with Rich later. Say it now. Nobody here is accusing Matt Riddle of anything. We don't know the specifics of what went on. We don't know. The conversation that I'm going to have with Rich later in the show centers around more about, you're a promoter, buddy. How would you handle these things? And Rich is going to give his opinions on that. But, but what I was about to say a second ago before my little legal disclaimer is that even though we're not alleging anything against Matt Riddle, but a week later, another report came out that he skipped a show. He no-showed a Memphis wrestling show to attend a wedding. Did you see that too?
I saw that, and you and I may differ on this one. It's still it's unprofessional any way you look at it. If I did that, you did that. If I had an obligation, you had an obligation. That's just unprofessional. That's not not calling into question why, how, when, where, what Riddle decided to do with that. I know he was alleged to be at Nick Hogan's wedding. There's photos of him with RVD and Katie Forbes and other guests at the wedding. For whatever it may be that he decided that he couldn't make that particular engagement. I don't know that we can call that a no-show. From what I understand, he called, he let him know he wasn't going to be there. Unprofessional to cancel, but do we call that a no-show?
Right. That's fair. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And I think, I mean, I think that situation is different. The situation from the week before, I actually do agree with you about the second one, because the first one was just it was a mess. And like you said, there were two people involved. It looked like they were dealing with somebody else first, and then it switched over to the girlfriend. And there was a lot of miscommunication there. And I don't know, maybe his new girlfriend is trying to get involved in stuff. I don't know. But the conversation I have with Rich later is about, so I'm going to pose these questions to you. You've never promoted a wrestling show, but if you were,
no.
And if you had someone like Matt Riddle, and again, I don't know that this is true, but the figure quoted on the text messages was $5,000 for the match for Matt Riddle. So I'm saying that to ask you, if you were a promoter, put yourself in their shoes, you've promoted a show, and you've built the show around this person. It's not just like, some of your regular roster or even some regional superstars. These are WWE, AEW guys, big guys that you're bringing in for big money, and you center your show around them. They're usually in the center of your poster.
Right.
The day of the show, they want to change. We're talking about at the $5,000 level. They want to change the terms. They want to add stuff. They want to take stuff away. They want to change the terms. What do you think? What would you do?
Well, if I've built a whole show around this particular superstar, then, they've kind of got you handcuffed, I would believe. Me personally, to almost any level, I would think you've got to, within reason, give in. You've got to get that show to go off. You've got to try to get it to go off as best you can. Now, if it ends up, costing you some money, then unfortunately, I kind of think that's lesson learned in the promotion game. I think what I've read, with this promoter for World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling, was that, I know, is that, he's kind of had lesson learned. He'll never work with Riddle again. I think that's really all you can do at the end of the day is just say, okay, we've got to make this happen, but I won't get burned again. You know what I mean? Gosh, that would be so tough. That makes my stomach hurt for these promoters. It really does.
Absolutely. But at the same time, kind of like you hinted a minute ago, in a sense, you got to chalk that up to cost of business. I mean,
absolutely.
In the sense that, like, if you're running shows in this industry, you have to know that there are constantly curveballs day of, and some of them are bigger than others. And I got to imagine you got to believe that there's some sunk money that goes into the business plan, just assuming guys are going to make mistakes. Guys are going to intentionally screw you or unintentionally screw you. And because of a variety of personal and business reasons, like, I got to imagine you got to have a little bit of that factored into what you're doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to have a rainy day fund, I would imagine. That's just good business sense. If you're not operating that way, then I think you're kind of fooling yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. But at the same time, like I said, I don't want to defame Matt Riddle's character for sure. But at the same time, I mean, we're noticing a pattern, right?
Exactly. And I'm with you. I'm not, Matt Riddle's a grown man. I mean, he does what he's going to do. And, hey, far be it for me to try to tell anybody what to do. But at the end of the day, if you have a pattern of behavior, it speaks volumes. That's what you're putting out to the world, that this is who you are, and people will start treating you accordingly.
No, absolutely. And in that vein, actually, speaking of pattern of behavior and showing people who you are, the other story that came out this week, dropped on Facebook first, with Action Wrestling posting, "We have cut all ties with Kevin Ryan." Kevin Ryan is a guy who is in a stable called The Good Hand. Many of you may already know. Shook D is in that stable. Alex Kane from MLW is in that stable. And so then after the post from Action, I started following it down and trying to figure out what was going on. I ended up finding these tweets with some screenshots posted by a wrestler named Sigrid, who works in Action Wrestling. I believe she also works at TWE Chattanooga and a bunch of other places down there. But Sigrid posted a bunch of screenshots of some communications from Kevin Ryan, where it looked to me like she was saying that he had sent her inappropriate pictures, and he was not arguing with that. And then it seemed like there was, I don't know, some more manipulative behavior in those texts as well from Kevin Ryan. It didn't look good. What did you think?
No, I'm with you. It really looked incriminating. Again, these are just allegations at this point, but the evidence is not looking good. Like you said, the manipulative behavior, kind of the wording of the text as it went along, and kind of felt like, once he was called out, really is just not a good look. I know everything online for him seems like it's been scrubbed. From what I can tell, I know he had his own promotion that's pretty much gone from online views. Everybody seems to be running for the hills, and from what I understand, the most telling tale for me is that everybody seemed to cut and run the day before the information really hit, which just means everybody kind of had an inside idea that it was coming, and of, unfortunately, who this guy may be.
Yeah. And again, we know nothing. We make no allegations. We don't know who Kevin Ryan is, but from the looks of what we've seen and the behavior, like you said, that was the thing that was most telling to me too. Like, it was glaring that these guys were almost preemptively getting ahead of this story and distancing themselves. And you and I were speaking last night on the phone, comparing this to Patrick Clark, Velveteen Dream. And Velveteen Dream is a guy who's just getting back into the business now after a long layoff. Allegations against him, inappropriate behavior. He's now performing. I haven't seen him anywhere else besides his home promotion, MCW, but he's Patrick Clark again. And but he's back. And the stuff that we had seen in the text messages regarding Velveteen Dream back then, that wasn't good either. So, this doesn't mean that Kevin Ryan's done, but it might mean he should be. We don't know, right?
We have no idea. It'll have to play out. That's for people above us. This will be, obviously a court case at some point. Whatever comes down from that will be, if he's, guilty, then you may not hear from him again. If he's found, not guilty, or some other, verdict comes down on it. Unfortunately, even with an accusation, whether proven true or false, these guys seem to be out of action for, a good amount of time, to have to kind of let their name, the heat on their name, cool down. Whether that, like Patrick Clark, kind of getting away from the Velveteen Dream, you kind of got to let it, you're just going to have to let it play out. You're going to have to let it cool down. I like to think, wrestling fans as a whole, we're forgiving. I don't think that we want anybody to not be able to make a living, but at the same time, as a wrestling fan, you don't want to see anybody that's taking advantage of anybody. And wrestling fans have a long memory, man. So, I hope this plays out well for him. If it does, in a few years, maybe we welcome him back. If it doesn't, then, hey, you made your bed. So,
yeah, absolutely. And you said something before we got on the air, which is, we both have daughters. I mean, this is
yep.
something that, again, like I said, I don't know whether Kevin Ryan did any of this stuff. I don't know. I don't really want to know, honestly. But, that my first thought having daughters is to immediately clinch up and close ranks in my own mind.
Yeah,
hearing it before I even ask any questions or have any evidence, that's the first thing I do. And, like you said, the behavior of other people is very telling here, and we'll just have to watch it play out with this guy and hope everything works out the best for everybody involved, especially if there's any quote unquote victims here. I say quote unquote, not because I'm making fun, but because I don't know if anybody would call themselves a victim from this. If they do, then I'll call you a victim, of course. But I don't know anything other than this one exchange, and I don't know if there's more. Anyway, my point is, we'll just have to watch it play out. And like I said, if there's anybody who's been hurt by this, we hope that they get what they deserve, coming to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So something a little bit more upbeat here. The other thing that came out, well, it's been a running thing on this show for a few weeks. I've had my eye on WWE ID for a while since they announced it. It's been kind of rattling around in my brain a lot since they first started talking about it. And again, for those of you not in the loop, the WWE ID program came out, I believe, in November or early December, or at least they started announcing it then. And basically, WWE is identifying, I believe there's 15 to 20 right now, prospects that they have ID'd. And they're still independent wrestlers. They are just tagged with a future in WWE. They're given resources and maybe a little stipend while they're on the road if they need it. They're given places to train. The ID program is now linked to 5 schools: Seth Rollins School, Rikishi's school, Booker T's school, Cody Rhodes School in Georgia, and I'm forgetting one. But those 5, all run by former WWE superstars or current WWE superstars within the WWE family, IDing guys who are now WWE ID prospects. And the thing that came out, or the thing that I noticed this week was, well, last week I was watching a show out of Pittsburgh, and they brought in Marcus Mathers, who's an ID prospect, and they already have one who regularly performs for them in Sam Holloway, who is the IWC Super Indy champion. So they essentially, on the night that Holloway won the title back, they brought in Marcus Mathers for a triple threat #1 contender match for the Super Indy title. Mathers wins. And then after Holloway's match, he challenges Holloway to an immediate match for the title, setting up an instant WWE ID Showcase match. Well, in the following 2 weeks, they did the Marcus Mathers, Sam Holloway WWE ID Showcase match at Full Impact Pro in Florida, and then Future Stars of Wrestling in Las Vegas 3 Saturdays in a row. If you look at the WWE ID Twitter, you see a few other pairings that have gotten who've gotten multiple runs in the last few weeks. I think there was a couple of Freedom Ramsey matches like in a cluster there. But where are you on WWE ID? Let's start there first. How much do you know about WWE ID, and what's your sort of general opinion overall?
So, I don't know a whole lot about the ID program. I mean, I know the generals, right? I guess a couple of ways to look at it. WWE now is deciding, they've got the power to decide what schools are going to be, WWE ID schools, right? What basically affiliate, right? So, does that give them any sort of leverage for these schools? I mean, they're making the decision. Okay, we like you, we don't like you. You guys got somebody we like, you don't. It makes me wonder how much control over the ID signed talent they're going to have versus the individual schools, right? So, like you're saying with these showcase matches, are these showcase matches that the schools want to do? I mean, I'm sure they're not hating the eyes that are coming with it, but does it fit in their plans? Is it WWE letting you know, hey, if our guys are going to be there, we're going to need some showcase matches. I'm wondering how, if you look at it, it's a way for WWE obviously to identify these guys early. And when you use that with their NIL program, the next in line program, pulling athletes directly out of the colleges, man, that's given them a real deep reach into the indie community. And these guys getting so early in, so it's early in both of these programs, so you don't know what impact it's going to have, but man, it kind of makes you leery, doesn't it?
It does for me. One of the things that stands out to me, especially with there being 5 schools, the thing that pops into my head is Power Five,
Correct.
like conferences, and we're seeing. Rich and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but we're seeing, these super conferences as the top tier of Division One tries to separate themselves from everybody else. And I'm wondering if we're not in line to have the same thing happen here. Is WWE going to take over control of the indies? Now that sounds like a big venture, but if guys are, or I say guys, I mean people, performers are clamoring to get to these schools because they know they have a better chance of getting ID'd. If promoters know that these guys bring the WWE ID is hot and that they can bring these guys in, they're going to be clamoring for these guys who are coming from these schools. And will everybody
Right.
else just be left to fend for themselves like their outlaw mud show promotions from the 80s or something?
That's kind of where I'm at with it as well. I mean, it's really going to be, can the WWE stay hands off or not? That's going to be the thing to watch. Can they stay hands off with these ID signees? And let them work their way through the individual schools, promotions, indies, what have you, or are they going to start dictating to these indie promoters and promotions, hey, this is what this guy needs to be doing, or girl. If they can stay hands off, hey, maybe it can be a good thing, giving these guys resources at a much younger stage of their career. The not having the financial struggle, having better access to training, to the promo classes, the mental aspect. Maybe you can develop these guys, a lot younger. But man, there's something to be said for these guys being road warriors. We're just going to have to wait and see, Bob. I really don't know at this stage. It can go either way. It can be really, really good. It can go really, really bad, I think.
It absolutely could. And I just had a thought I was going to say about that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if road warriors. I mean, yeah, I guess these indie guys are still kind of road warriors, but I mean, if they're, yeah, I mean, I guess see, the thing is, the more connection they have to WWE ID, like you said, the less they are going to be so, in the sense that they're just going to gravitate towards the WWE ID sort of safe spots in the desert, really, rather than anything else. But
and we're only going to develop. Listen, if you're a WWE ID prospect, what is WWE looking for? They're looking for WWE style wrestlers. Not everybody wants to be WWE style. I love WWE style. I also love the indie style. I love lucha. I love, I love all kinds of different things. That's what makes it great. If everything is all kind of this safe for TV style, where does that lead us?
Yeah. And you hit on a point a minute ago about those people who want to be in WWE. I mean, I've been thinking that, that this program is perfect for these performers out there whose entire life dream was to be in WWE. I think of Stephanie Valquer. Like, she showed up on AEW, had one match against Mercedes Moné. WWE was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And she was gone because that's the only place she ever wanted to be. And so for those kind of people, of course, you're going to get into the indies, and the moment ID wants to name you, you're in and you're sold. You're WWE until you die or until they cut you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
but the other people, the folks whose dream is to be a pro wrestler, not necessarily a WWE superstar, you know, I think the ID program is going to look away from them. And I worry that, well, I mean, all right. So first of all, this whole thing is a shot at AEW. Everything WWE is doing is a shot at AEW. I mean, essentially WWE ID is them taking AEW Dark and making it better. Because that's what AEW was trying to do, was get into the indies by using Dark. And I thought they did a great job at it. And I got to see a lot of really cool talent on there, but it didn't sustain.
Right.
And so everything here is a shot at AEW. But my concern is just like this story I saw coming out. I don't know if this is true, but have you heard these rumors that WWE is going to buy TNA? And the reason that they're going to buy TNA is because the Netflix deal is taking them off of international TV markets that they don't want AEW on. So they're either partnering with or buying TNA so that they can put TNA in the markets they used to be on and keep AEW out of them. Have you heard that?
I have not heard that, but I mean, that's a very, it's a smart business move. I mean, let's be honest. And the new owners of WWE are not dumb business people.
No.
So if they can keep the competition kind of pigeonholed, which is what they've kind of been able to do so far with AEW, then they're going to keep the hammer down. I can absolutely see them, doing this with TNA, especially given the current, recent working relationship, which, frankly, I've enjoyed. It's made TNA relevant to me again. Hey, it's business, man. Business, baby. Let let it roll. The big dog's gonna win. So let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Hey, and there's nothing more fun for me than seeing Ash by Elegance on NXT or I think this week Nick Nemeth on NXT. Like Nick Nemeth on NXT? Are you kidding me?
Yep.
I feel like, there was a guy named Dolph Ziggler who was an NXT the champion here just like a year ago, wasn't he? Year and a half?
I vaguely remember the name.
Right. Oh my God.
Are we talking about are we talking about the Dolph Ziggler, Amy Schumer's favorite wrestler? Or is that the one we're talking about? Okay.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. That's hilarious. I mean, Dolph Ziggler got around now, didn't he? I mean, he's
Yes, he did. Hey, listen, he's a pretty man. He's a pretty man.
Certainly is. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, this has been fun. This is awesome. So I want to move on. I want to move on to the next section. This is we got two more things before the Rich interview. These are two of my normal segments, and then we'll come back after the Rich interview and preview some stuff. Go ahead.
I'll try to be as productive as I can.
So each week I just tried to do a little roundup on who was crowned champion over the past weekend. I've been calling the segment and new. I don't do a very good Howard Finkel. Maybe you do one better.
No.
All right, fair enough. So this week we had a bunch of new champions. Oh gosh, my spacing is crazy on my list. Anyway, so a bunch of new champions crowned this week, starting with former NXT talent Danny Luna winning the DPW Women's title this past week from Miyuki Takase. You ever watch NXT UK?
No, I did not get the UK, even though I have the British boy living at the house, behind the scenes here. He let me down. The boy let me down.
The British boy being your daughter's boyfriend, or fiance?
We're gonna call him her lackey.
That probably works. Now, listen, I've met him. He is awesome. And he's gonna have to come on the show at some point.
Yeah, he's definitely being a younger fan. He doesn't have the years that you and I have in, but he's got some interesting takes. So and if nothing else, he sounds funny when you talk to him. So
hey, listen, his accent alone will class up the joint, right?
Hey, man, if Jon and I in here, it can't get any classier.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's see. Moving down my list. So speaking of Matt Riddle, up until last Saturday had been the AAW champion out in Chicago. He falls to Ren Jones. And on the same show, the women's title changed hands as Sierra fell to the belt collector, Maggie Lee. Have you gotten to see any Maggie Lee yet?
I've seen a few matches. I like what I see, but she's definitely on my list of must watch. I know I've got a long list to catch up on here for the show, but she's definitely towards the top of the list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing I'll recommend to you, gosh, I'm actually going to pull it up now because I don't remember the name of the show. Is the second to last show of Dreamwave on IWTV. And I'm just going to talk here while I'm trying to pull it up. But
Yeah, go ahead.
there's a match between Maggie Lee and Megan Bain. And I believe it was
New
on...
AEW signee, Megan Bain.
That's exactly right. And also, just this week for the first time, ranked in the Indie Wrestling Experience overall women's rankings because we've added House of Glory this week, and she is their champion. Of course, as soon as I put her name on the Indie top 15 Indie women list, she gets signed by AEW. Isn't that how it usually works?
Hey, well, I mean, I'm not saying you got influence, brother, but who knows?
But there's a match between Megan Bain, and I'm having a hard time finding it right now. Megan Bain and Maggie Lee at a Dreamwave show. I will find it. I will send it to you. But it's absolutely off
definitely.
the chain. Maggie Lee is your RPW Glamour champion. She's your Dreamwave Women's champion. Now your AAW Women's champion. And I bet there's a few more. Rich told me she's only been in the business 3 years, and he thinks she's got the
wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you go on and if nothing else, if you go on the Indie Wrestling Experience YouTube channel, there is a moonsault. I believe it's up, or it may just be. I don't know. I time them so they come out every couple of days. But there was a match at RPW Envision with Maggie Lee versus Lily Ruiz, Lily La Pescadita, and Jordan Blue. And Maggie hit the most beautiful moonsault you've ever seen. I mean, better than the BME. It's incredible. And so she just kind of glides through the air.
Definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, definitely check her out. Let's see, moving on. So in Fighting Arts Wrestling this past weekend, Kata Sin became their champion, winning a battle royal. At Metroplex Wrestling, Exodus Prime won the Addicts Championship from Angel Camacho. Not sure what the Addicts Championship is all about. I'm gonna have to find out.
Hey man, once you pick it up, it's hard to put down.
Winning belts is addictive. Fair enough. Over at Pro Wrestling 225, Simon Phillips won the SEC title from the Tennessee Volunteers. No, he won the SEC title from Braxton Hunter. At WCPW, which is West Coast Professional Wrestling, I believe. The Pretty City Express won the tag titles from the West Coast Wrecking Crew. Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs. Have you seen any of them in New Japan?
I have not, so they are going to be on my list.
All right, let's see what else we got here. At Love Pro Wrestling, Intangible Violence won the tag titles from Ride or Die. At Pro Wrestling Revolver, Crash Jackson won the Remix title in a scramble match. This one I know you know, down at Boca Raton, Florida, at Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, there's a new cruiserweight champion as Destro the Eskimofo fell to the world-famous Cheeseburger. What do you remember about Cheeseburger?
Oh, dude, my favorite wrestler. I mean, if I ever envisioned myself as a wrestler, it was as Cheeseburger.
I'd like to envision myself as a human the size of Cheeseburger.
Hey, Cheeseburger and my leg have a lot of size comparison in common. So Cheeseburger is my boy. He's my spirit animal. Go Cheeseburger. Congratulations.
And now you, I know for a fact, are an old school Ring of Honor guy. So were you watching when Cheeseburger first came on the scene, or those early Ring of Honor matches with him?
I was not there for the early cheeseburger. I was definitely there for the Shoto Palm Strike cheeseburger. The Never Say Die cheeseburger. You know, listen, if Hart had a shape and was shaped like a wrestler, looks like cheeseburger.
It's funny you mentioned that Palm Strike because the Palm Strike is alive and well in Focus Pro Wrestling. He was just there a couple of weeks ago and actually pulled it out and won a match with it against Brian Bayside.
My man.
Of course, he tried to body slam the 325-pound Bayside first, and Bayside fell on him like Andre at WrestleMania 3.
Oh.
I thought Cheeseburger was flattened into the mat.
Hey, man. Flattened cheeseburger still tastes good.
Hey,
so, still gives you everything you need.
Hell yeah, they do. I'm not above eating a flattened cheeseburger, I'll tell you that. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's see. Over the weekend at Naptown All Pro Wrestling, they had a fatal four-way for the tag titles, and Sean Dean and Carly Bravo came out the winners. Have you gotten to see those guys in Ring of Honor?
I have not.
All right, another one for your list. Let's see. Magnolia Championship Wrestling. Chris Silvio won a match, I believe, for the vacant title. He defeated Brimstone. Brimstone's a guy I've seen because he comes up here sometimes for that AWA promotion, Assault Wrestling Alliance down in Waldorf. Is that name? Are you familiar with that name, Brimstone?
I've heard it. I have not seen a match.
Yeah.
But I've heard good things. So
yeah, he's a guy I think of when I mean he looks like a professional wrestler to me. He's built like a professional wrestler. He carries himself like one, talks like one. They make him champions in most promotions he goes to. I've not seen him get a shot at the big time on any of the other shows, but he seems to me like the consummate indie wrestling kind of guy. Down at WSP, Haley Danielle defeated Denise Day for the women's title. At NICW over the past weekend, Cad Cobalt won the Mid-Atlantic Championship from Yellow Man. For those of you following at home, that's Yellow Man, Y-E-L-A, Yellow Man. At Rampage Wrestling, Brooke Tyler took home the Texas Heritage title, defeating Phil Noir. And at Pro Wrestling Epic, Cash Borden wins the world title by default because Ben Trust was recently injured and had to forfeit. In the same show, Borden says, I don't want to win the world title like that. Give me an opponent. They bring out Herzog, and Cash Borden beats him. Now he feels like the real champion. What do you think of that move? Is that you got to give the folks something, right?
Right. Come on, you don't want anything given to you. You want to earn it. So he went out, he earned it, and more power to you, Cash.
Yes, sir. Moving on, our YouTube recommendation of the week. John, you and I talked about this show a little bit last night, but I did spring it on you. This is a show that was just dropped on YouTube this past week from Enjoy Wrestling. Anybody who's been to an Enjoy Wrestling show knows that it's a very interesting promotion. So I went to my first show a couple years ago out in Pittsburgh at Mr. Small's Theater, which is basically a converted Catholic church. And it's now a bar. And so there's no chairs at these shows. Everybody's standing around the ring or they're standing around the bar. There's an upstairs balcony, which is where I watched the show from the last time I was there, which is kind of a cool vantage point. In fact, actually, one of the matches, they had like I think it was a Fatal 4 tag team match, and like 8 people just spread throughout the entire venue. And one of them being Edith Surreal, ended up in the balcony next to me fighting as if they were going to fall over the railing. It was awesome. But Enjoy Wrestling is definitely one of the more well-known intergender promotions. John, where are you on intergender matches? We've had some discussion on both sides of this recently.
I think you and I both, as older wrestlers or wrestling fans, it took me a while to get here. I get the whole, equality and everything else. And so it took me a little while to get here, and where my kids have grown up watching it, and especially my daughters, they're hey, everybody can be a wrestler. I mean, it really has become something that.
So where are you? I'll ask you, where are you on these intergender matches?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, you and I both have daughters. It took me a while to get to where, okay, we're old school. I didn't want to see a guy throwing a girl around the ring. But you know what? That was also a time when the girls in the ring were, Miss Elizabeth and Baby Doll and Woman, very, beautiful women, great managers and some wrestlers in their own right, but they are not the girls of today. These girls today can flat out go. And these matches are great. When they make sense storyline wise and with what's going on in the world, the matches are great. They put on great matches. They can pull off every move any of the guys can do. I say more power to them, man. And bring it on.
Yeah, I like it. And I know my wife and some other people have mentioned the idea about domestic violence, and I understand those triggers for people. I don't want to take that away from
I do.
anybody. I
I do
personally
too.
don't have those triggers. And also because I've never been a victim, but also being a guy, the way I sort of started to view it was this levels women up. I mean, this is a scripted environment, so all the arguments about women can't play sports because they're not as physically whatever, all that stuff that people say about sports, which I don't necessarily agree with in the first place. But when you
Mm-hmm.
apply it to wrestling in a scripted environment where everything is choreographed, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
to me it gives me the vibes of being able to level women up in a sense. I mean, you're watching these women beat up these men, kind of. I mean, and that's
Hey, listen. How many movies have come out lately? Action movies, great action movies, where the hero of the film, the heroine, is female and just absolutely kicking ass. To me, it's a break from reality. I understand it's entertainment. To me, there's not an issue with it. Again, I can understand somebody having triggers. I haven't been through what other people have been through. Um, but for me, I can take a break from reality and enjoy it for what it is. And again, like I said earlier, I mean, these ladies now, they're not they're not our ladies from the past. These
mm,
girls are just absolute animals in the ring. And they can go with anybody.
yeah, oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, so Enjoy Wrestling is one of the bigger intergender promotions. They have a lot of intergender matches. Um, and it's a really cool venue. So I guess it's kind of a I don't know. I guess the thing that stood out to me was when I went out to the Enjoy show, they said to me, or they said to all of us, today's July 2nd or whatever. We're gonna drop this show on YouTube in August. So please don't spoil the results until then. And literally no one did. How is that possible?
Hey man, that's voodoo magic.
Seriously, man. I mean, you talk about you talk about being a business and building trust with your customers.
Hey, that's awesome, man. When the fans buy in, especially to a smaller indie promotion, magic happens, man.
Yeah, we've seen it numerous times, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
So on this show, Get Warmer, which was filmed at Mr. Small's Theater in December of 2024. This is the show that's on YouTube now. Again, John, I've talked about this before, but I'm a big proponent of YouTube and not proponent of it, but a lot of promoters rightfully feel like YouTube sort of lets them down. And if you go on YouTube and you look at, full shows or even not full shows, but you look at the views on some of these promotions, they're getting double and triple digit views on great wrestling shows. Nobody's seeing this stuff. And I don't know if that has to do with the algorithm. I don't know if that has to do with the fact that like in every aspect of life, most people only really want the big version WWE or AEW, and they're not looking for this stuff. But there's a lot of great wrestling on YouTube that's free.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's where things like, what you're doing here with the podcast and inviting me to be part of it, I, really, really appreciate. Um, it's going to take, things like that, like what you're doing, what, any of these small indies, anybody that's talking about it, anybody that's got a blog, that's what's got to put the small stuff out there. That's what's going to keep all of the little guys at the forefront of some people's minds. Just think about it when we were young and that first real indie experience you got. I know you. I've known you forever, and I can almost guarantee it was the exact same moment I had. It was an explosion in my brain. It just,
Yeah.
holy crap, this is out there. This doesn't look like Hulk Hogan giving a leg drop. What the heck am I looking at? I don't know, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's opening the eyes to all these younger fans that don't know what's out there. They know the big stuff, same as we did. I mean, that hasn't changed. What's changed is the access that they have to go out and consume. But if you don't know it's there, you can't consume it. So that's why it's so important for guys like you to be talking about this stuff. So, hey man, keep up the good work, brother.
All right. I'll take the kudos whenever I can get them. but so
you always did. You always did.
All right, look. I'm not the attention hog here. We'll get to that later. We'll start talking shit later. No, but so we'll talk about Raisin Bran and green beans and all sorts of fun stuff from our past, but one day.
Breakfast of champions.
That's it.
Hogan had his vitamins. Bob and John had Raisin Bran and their green beans.
We sure did, man. And some ass whoopings too, but that's different. But anyway, what I was going to say was you were talking about people being, or that the kids these days, or the generation these days, they have the ability to consume more easily, more quickly. Which brought to mind when we were a kid, I apparently, and I didn't find this out until I became an adult and reconnected with wrestling, but apparently I missed out on the tape trading craze of the 80s and 90s. Did you ever trade tapes with anybody?
Nope. I think you and I were probably out around the same time. Just for whatever reasons. But yeah, I mean, you listen to some of these stories of the tape traders. Man, I would have been all over that. And I know you. If I'd have had 3 or 4, you'd have had 300 or 400. So it would have been great.
Yes, if I had known about tape trading, and for all of the shit that Dave Meltzer takes, I would have liked to have known about the Wrestling Observer in the 80s too. Now, you could say what you want about Dave Meltzer these days. I have plenty of opinions, but I would have loved to have that newsletter in the 80s.
To have a newsletter, to know, I mean, like I said, you and I pieced together so little information back then. And it was enough to feed the fire of our interest in this, right? If we would have had access to something like that, we'd have been monsters.
Yeah, I'd have failed out of school.
We would have been absolutely. I mean, we may never have gotten married. We may have been single, living in a bunk bed together in an apartment somewhere. It would have been horrible. But yet, we didn't find it. We got married. We had lives, careers. So I guess it might have worked out.
Yeah, but now we did find it, and our wives hate us. So I mean, it's give and take.
Yeah.
So last night we were talking about this. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. All I'm going to do is get myself in trouble. So let's go.
Now I got to let you talk. All right, but I won't. So did you ever get a chance? We talked about it last night. I sprung it on you. Did you ever get a chance to watch any of the show, this Enjoy show?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch any of it.
Yeah, one thing you'll find if you ever get a chance to go back and watch it is these shows are really well produced, like the high def, whatever. It's just high quality production, which you don't get to see a lot of in the indies as well, which I really appreciate, because I mean, you and I know shit. If you
Yeah,
just go back and listen to those old Ring of Honors from 2004, I mean, the commentary sounds like, and
yeah,
it's almost impossible to
they're
get
kind
through.
of they're kind of rough, but um, you get through stuff when you have a love of what's going on, and so production value just makes it that much easier.
Yes, absolutely. But so I'm recommending that everybody get out and watch this show. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's definitely worth your time, and I think it will probably should spur you on or incentivize you to go see and enjoy a show if you are in an area that's easily that you can get to Pittsburgh fairly easily. On this show, the show starts out with Tony Deppen, who many of you may know from Ring of Honor, taking on Mikey Montgomery. Excuse me. Do you remember Deppen? Was that a?
I remember Deppen. He's a monster. I
Yeah.
love Deppen. He's somebody that I've kind of been waiting for him to get a chance at a bigger promotion. He's got all the tools. He's got a great look. He's got a great act. I'm ready for bigger things from Deppen.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Coming up after that, we had a 6-man tag match where Jack Pollock, Junie Underwood, and Nick Wilde take on Reese Hayes and the Fourth Line, which is Brandon St. James and Casey War. Those two guys, I just did a review of an 880 Wrestling Thursday Night Fights on the blog. Those guys are good. Brandon St. James, Casey War, Reese Hayes, they're all out there in that promotion as well. And I think that promotion is out in Pennsylvania, sort of in the same area. So a lot of these guys are on those 880 shows. There was a tag team match with one of my favorite tag teams. I believe they are this month ranked number 3 tag team overall by the Indie Wrestling Experience. Thank you very much. The Runway, Calvin Couture and Tyler Klein take on the Kings of the District, which is also another formidable tag team, being Eel O'Neill and Jordan Blade. Darius Carter takes on Holodead in an intergender match. Did we see Holodead up in MLW when we went up there?
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah.
She was great.
Yeah. Did you ever see her before?
No, that's the only time that I've seen her in person. I've seen her on a few indie shows here and there. Great look, great move set. Another one that I can see doing bigger things.
Yeah, I love the look. I love her look. I'm a big fan of her. There's a number 1 contenders match with Gianni Michael Enrico taking on MV Young. I would say this is the match of the night. You guys tell me what you think. Gianni Michael Enrico is your 880 Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, and he's now your number 1 contender to the Enjoy title, which as of before this show began was held by Sonny Kiss. We'll get to that in a minute. First, we have an Enjoy tag team title match, another tag team that I am very high on. The Main Event, or TME, I guess as they're called, since there's another Main Event out in Chicago. I think they've been going by TME more recently, defending their titles against Waves and Curls, Jalen Brandon and Trayvon Jordan. And then in that Enjoy title match, Sonny Kiss, who many of you, any of you current product watchers certainly know Sonny Kiss from AEW. I'm trying to think where else I would have seen Sonny Kiss on TV, but I don't know that I would have. It would have just been indie shows.
No, Sonny Kiss had a moment in Lucha Underground.
See, we were just talking about this last night. I only watched season 1 of Lucha Underground.
No,
so I
Sonny
need to
Kiss had a great little run in Lucha Underground. That's where I fell in love with Sonny Kiss.
Was Sonny Kiss in Lucha Underground?
I don't remember if she went by Sonny Kiss. All I know is she was unlike anything you had seen and was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. I mean, I'm a big Sonny Kiss fan too. And on this night at this Enjoy show, taking on another one of my favorite people in the NWA scene, really, but also in the indies. I've seen Max the Impaler. I'm a huge fan of Max the Impaler. What's your experience with Max?
I have not. It doesn't ring a bell for me, so that's another one for me to get into.
Yeah, if you can go back and watch some NWA stuff, Max was the NWA television champion for a while. And I think they just unified those titles. I don't know. It was last August. I was there and I've already forgotten, but I don't think Max is the television champion anymore, but just an impressive, uh, performer with a gimmick that is. I'll be honest with you. Did you see the Valhalla gimmick that Sarah Logan did when she came back in WWE?
Yes.
It
Yes.
is
Yes.
when you see Max the Impaler, who was around for years before Sarah Logan came back as Valhalla. I think you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
the same impression I do, which is that they lifted that gimmick because I mean,
Yeah.
the aesthetic is almost exact.
Highly possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we have Rich Buchholtz, owner of Ragin' Pro Wrestling out in Wisconsin. Rich is returning to talk to us today. He just had RPW Redemption 4 in Manitowoc, Wisconsin this past weekend, January 25th. We have been previewing this show for weeks here, and now we have Rich. Rich, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hey, great. Good to talk to you again. How was the show?
It was very good. We had all 8 matches. There was no cancellations. Everything went as good as could be. Weather was phenomenal. Was pretty worried about that going into the week with the cold temperatures. But show started at 6 o'clock. Was done by like 8:40. Danhausen, I think, overachieved. He was very, very good. The crowd loved him. Could not ask anything more of him. He was absolutely phenomenal in that match.
Awesome. I saw some photos. I think maybe Devin Ashman may have posted a photo, or someone from that group, I think, posted a photo of Danhausen in the ring. It was just awesome to see him there.
Yeah, he probably did, and we'll be releasing them, I believe, in 7 or 8 days. The photo stuff. I'm just waiting for Carl to give me all the stuff to post for social media.
Yeah. Okay. And I think I saw a few of them start to pop up, some of his like previews or his
Yeah,
early picks.
we're doing one. Yeah, we're doing like one a day.
Okay. All right. So let's go through this show. If you want to do it in order, or I can call out the matches that I have listed here, however you want to do it.
If you want to call it the matches, that'd probably be the easiest.
Okay. All right. And so because I don't know, folks, I honestly don't know. Rich, after this show, Rich went out of town on some business and he just got back. So I don't really even know what happened at this show. So I'm going to ask Rich, but my first question was the last time we talked, the Isaiah Moore match was in flux.
So Isaiah Moore ended up facing Darren Fly. Darren Fly is a guy out of Indiana. He's in a group called Twist and Flip, and they're pretty over in the Midwest, but he came in solo to face Isaiah Moore.
Okay. How'd that match turn out?
It turned out really good. It was the opening match. Isaiah Moore retained the RPW Cruiserweight Championship. So good crowd reaction. So I was happy with it.
Good, 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 good. And that was the first time you say his name again?
Darren Fly.
Darren Fly. Had you worked with him before?
I'd met him before. He will come in occasionally, travel with certain wrestlers. So like I've met him before.
Okay. And so when we talked last time, Isaiah Moore's match was open. You didn't necessarily have a plan, or at least that's what you were telling us at the time.
Yep.
So take us from that point to getting the match together. How do you get Darren Fly? What's the communication like, and get him to the show?
So I got him in connection with him. Actually, Isaiah Moore knows who he is. So like usually what I do is I will reach out to the wrestler who is being affected and see if they know somebody that they want to work and wrestle. And if it works out, then wonderful. If it doesn't, then we'll move more towards a local direction. But like I try to, chemistry is a big thing for me. Not every promotion feels that way, but for us, it's huge. So like they've wrestled each other before, so I knew it was gonna be a nice crisp match, and they definitely delivered. So I was very happy.
Good. And you've told us before that you generally stay out of the booking of the match, or the producing of the matches, I guess I should say. You book the match, you book the endings. And
Yep.
Since these guys know each other and we're comfortable with each other, I'm assuming you stayed out of it pretty much, except for the ending.
I just stay out of it. Like I tell wrestlers, if you don't learn how to produce your own stuff, once you get up to WWE, AEW, Impact, even OVW possibly, um, you're going to get micromanaged. And if you don't know how to put your own input in, they're going to walk all over you. And we've talked about it before where WWE is notorious for changing people's gimmicks and it just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, it definitely doesn't. We talked about numerous examples of that before. So when you're talking, so before the Isaiah Moore match,
Yep.
do you tell those guys Isaiah's going over, figure the rest out, or or is there any more specific direction you give them?
Generally speaking, it's usually exactly what you said. It's a matter of if we want any kind of attack after or anything like that, then we'll talk to the wrestler. Otherwise, it's very, very simple. Of this person's going over, take his finisher or whatever the case may be.
Right. Okay. And did you have a second surge match that night?
We had two more. It was Chucky Bates versus Gary J.
Okay. Let's talk about that one.
Gary J drives up from St. Louis. Chucky Bates is a local talent that's very over in the Milwaukee area. I wasn't exactly sure how to produce this one as far as who to be the babyface, who to be the heel.
Mhm.
We've had Gary J several times, and Chucky is kind of a face here. So we had Gary J be the face. Chucky was a heel. It was a little bit of a mixed reaction because people are used to cheering for Chucky,
Mhm.
but we didn't know that going in because of the crowd. We don't always get the Milwaukee crowd.
Right.
So
Now,
like there's gonna be times where it's gonna get mixed.
right. Yeah. Now, from what I saw, some of the pictures that you posted, that match is one of them.
Yep.
And I had not seen Chucky Bates before, but it looks like he's got my guess is he gets cheered a lot because he's kind of like a cool heelish kind of character. He looks like kind of a horror kind of
It's like,
character in a sense.
it's like a demented type thing. It's yeah, kind of like the movie Chucky is what I'm guessing.
Right.
It's kind of
Uh,
the base of it.
right. So the kind of guy who probably started as a heel, then got really popular with the gimmick, I'm guessing.
That'd be my guess. I've only met him like maybe once or twice before that, so and it was just in passing. It was never like full on conversation.
Right. Was there anything else in this match other than the uh
Um,
the outcome?
they the outcome, I think we surprised people because Gary J has never lost at RPW and Chucky Bates won the match.
Oh, right. Okay.
It
Um,
was
sorry, I'm losing a little bit. So then you had another surge match.
Yep. The other Surge match was Ethan Matthews versus Jody Lee.
Okay. And how did that match turn out?
Ethan Matthews ended up winning. The crowd was definitely behind Jody. He did a lot of stuff going into the match where he did the vignettes and stuff where we don't usually get people that'll do that. So that was actually kind of cool.
Mhm.
I don't require it because I've always been a big believer in I don't like forcing talent to do certain stuff because it comes down to the micromanaging aspect. Where if you can ask them to do it, but if you're like requiring it, you might get some they might push back at you a little bit.
Right.
So
So your approach on that is not necessarily to view the folks who don't do it as a negative. You view the folks who do it as a positive.
correct. And
Uh,
then my like aspect. I'll keep going.
okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say my aspect of it is pretty much when we bring in talent that just start out for RPW, I want to see how they react to situations we put them in, whether they're going over or whether they're not going over. I want to see how they react to it because we don't tell them until the day of the show.
Right. Okay, so on to the main show. I'm gonna just since
Yep.
now we're on the main show, I'm just gonna run down my list of what's left. But so I'm gonna start with Stacy Shadows versus Casey Lennox, and I did see Casey post a very confident post-match photograph, so I do know that Casey won the match.
She did.
Anything interesting about that
She
match as far as story moving that forward?
she cheated to win, and that sets up our cage match where there's no rules. She's gonna have to escape the cage. She's not gonna be able to cheat.
So you're doing the
So
cage.
she's gonna have to.
You're doing the cage that's escape or pin or submit.
Oh, we're doing escape. We're not doing pin or submit.
Oh, nice.
We're doing the old school way.
Yeah. All right. I like that even better. Heck yeah. You got to escape the
I
other
wish they
person.
would still do it. Yep, I wish they would do that, and I don't even see it anymore.
I know. It's funny too, because in the '80s, I used to think that
Everything is yeah.
because I was a WWF guy in the '80s, and so when I
Yep.
would see them do, war games or whatever else, seeing guys getting pinned, that was foreign to me then.
Yep. Because I
Um,
think of the Bret Hart, Owen Hart match and stuff like that.
hmm Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of Hogan and King Kong Bundy even in the big blue cage. Oh wait, that Owen match was in the big blue
Yep.
cage too, I think, wasn't it?
It was. I think it was one of the very last ones in the blue cage.
I do too. I'm one of the few people who like that blue cage. I know it's not functionally, the wrestlers probably hate it, but visually,
I loved it. I loved it for the climbing aspect.
yeah.
Like we don't have that cage. That's totally fine. They can still climb. All you do is jump up. It's not difficult. It's just a matter of the aspect of climbing up and down the blue cage is really cool in my view.
Right. Yes, I agree. Let's see. So that's their main event. I'm gonna skip over that one. So then you had Missa Kate take on Lily Ruiz.
That one I think we surprised the crowd. Lily Maurice went over. Um, we're building stuff that we'll get into with the Destiny show. She'll be challenging for the RPW Glamour champion. If Maggie's still champion, she'll be challenging her.
And I'm gonna get to it later, but do we have Maggie booked for Homecoming? Or
Yes.
are
Yep.
we
Maggie is booked for home.
are we ready to announce something later or no?
Yeah. Maggie will be putting her RPW Glamour Championship on the line against OVW champion J Rod.
Ooh. Have you had J Rod in before?
I was supposed to have her in January 25th, and it didn't work out.
Oh, really?
But I was actually just talking to her like probably 30 minutes ago. So
Awesome.
we're just I'm just waiting on OVW to officially tell me that there's nothing show wise for them, that there's no conflict. But as of right now, that's what the plan is that she's coming in to challenge Maggie Lee for the RPW Glamour Championship.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah, I loved when I saw Lily. That was the very first time I had seen her was when I was out there with you in November, and I've just been impressed with her. I've
Yep.
seen her since on either a Chicago style or a Dreamwave show. I don't remember, but she was awesome on there too.
She
I'm really impressed with her.
she just got done working a NWA taping too.
Oh, cool. Good for her.
So very young, very very nice. Like she's got a very, very good attitude, and that's a huge props to her.
Yeah, and I think the fans really respond to her.
They do,
Yeah. She's
and like
just.
I like her. I'll keep on.
No, I was just saying because she's so likable. She got a big smile and she comes out and she's just kind of radiating. That's kind of the character, I guess.
Oh, 100%. Like it's one of those things where I like that we use different um backgrounds and all that stuff. Like with her being like Hispanic and stuff, that could lead to more Hispanic people coming to our shows and all that stuff too. So like I'm all about bringing in um as much people as possible that maybe have never heard of RPW.
Right. Yeah, no,
So
absolutely. Like the old Bill Watts thing, the only color I see is green.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Let me see.
I don't. Yeah,
So let's talk about Parker Boudreaux versus Garrison Creed. How'd Parker do?
he did good. The crowd at first wasn't real sure who he was, um, but it was like a 15-minute match. It was good. Like he had a lot of fun. Like he thanked me several times for bringing him in. He'll be back in May. So he's facing Ezio Orlandi out of Illinois. So that should be a really good match.
We'll come back to that when we talk about Homecoming and Destiny in a minute, but I'm curious how that came together, how Easy or Orlandi became part of this. Let's see, I got just two more matches. I got the main event, but first, the Aaron Arsenal versus Shane Hills match.
Aaron Arsenal defeated Shane Hills. That was an interesting trainer versus trainee. Trainer would have been Shane, and then Arsenal would have been the trainee. Aaron Arsenal's definitely put himself on the map. He's all over Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota. He's doing really well for himself. And I got to sit down and talk to him a little bit after his match, and it was very good. Like, I was very happy with it.
Good. And then he gets a fan response. You saying he's kind of rising?
He's rising. He's a very good heel.
Okay. Nice. We're good heels. There's always a place for good heels.
Yeah, it's one of those things where as long as you can bump, you can be the best heel in the world. It doesn't matter anything else. As long as you can bump good and sell the crowd, you'll be set for life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really simple, isn't it? I mean, all these other complicated things, but if you can sell, if you can feed a comeback or whatever, you'll have a place somewhere.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, when people talk to me about wins and losses, I go, the most over guy in WWE that's not named Roman Reigns is probably The Miz, and The Miz has probably lost probably 2 times more matches than he's ever won.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So while we're yeah. Sorry. So I was about to close out, and then I forgot we hadn't talked about the Danhausen match. So Danhausen and Brick McCarthy in the main event taking on JDX, Money Miguel, and Rampage Santana. How did the main event turn out?
Yep. It went really well. The crowd was into it the entire match. They did 2 heats and 2 false finishes. And then as far as the babyface comeback part of it, there's parts where I'm like looking and going, maybe they changed this on me, because I was kind of surprised when they went back to the second part. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Huh.
Because I was under the impression that it was pretty much just once that they were doing that stuff, and then all of a sudden they did it twice, and the crowd ate it up a lot as far as the babyface comeback twice and the double heat.
Right.
So
did the match run long and make your event run long because of that, or?
I think the event got over like at 8:37, so maybe like 6 minutes longer than we anticipated.
Okay. But
I'll never.
Go ahead.
What's that?
You're gonna say I'll never.
I was just gonna say I'll never yell at talent for going over as long as the crowd's into it.
Right. I think that's fair.
Like, if they're just kind of like doing the motions and the crowd's dead, then I'll get annoyed.
Right.
But if the crowd's into it, whatever, keep going.
So, any thoughts about bringing Danhausen back, or talks?
Not talks yet, but like, we only have the 2 shows, and like, we're booked on both those shows. For me, I'm very big on making sure that everything is accounted for financially before I talk to talent. So like, if we don't have a show in place, I don't want to commit to them, because I don't want them to feel like they got to take the booking and then also the booking's not there.
Right. I think that's fair.
So
as far as
go
ahead.
I was just gonna say, so most of the wrestlers don't want to do anything within a 6-month window. So like, if you're booking, example would be Destiny, a lot of wrestlers we reached out to would not take the booking because it was so far out.
What is the reasoning on that, or what do you think is the reasoning on that?
Well, I mean, the thing that people got to remember is that a lot of these people that we're reaching out to could get signed to AEW, TNA, possibly go back to WWE, who knows? And they don't want to look bad by canceling on it.
Oh, I see. Even if they get called up, they feel like that makes them look bad?
Yeah, because it's one of those things where they might not. It depends on because some people will buy tickets just based on whoever we're bringing in. So like if we're bringing in somebody and WWE signs them, it looks bad on our part, but it's like we planned it out a long time ago. We have no way of knowing that.
Right.
So like just say hypothetically if Zilla got signed within a couple months before our show, we had that date discussed back in November. So like there's no way of knowing that.
Right.
I mean, I'm not breaking any news that I know of. He has not been signed, but I'm not probably on his first to call list either. So I mean, if it happens, I'm sure I'll hear about it. But I'm not his top person to call to confirm stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. So anything else from Redemption? Any other, was it besides the matches, were there any promo spots or any other story elements that move forward that we haven't already talked about?
Not that I can think of. The meet and greets went really well. Danhausen really had a lot of people come up for his, so I was very happy with that. Parker had a decent amount, so I think the Wapaka show more people know who he is now, so that'll help out.
I think you said something that Danhausen had like a limited amount, like 75 meet and greets available. Did he fill those?
He's probably like 20 short, somewhere there.
Right.
So he probably had about 55.
Very cool. Very good.
But
Good
like
night for him.
we try to push stuff ahead of time, so like there could have been people that came up afterwards that I may have not counted. As far as like the number of, because if they didn't get a picture, it'd be very hard for me to count it. It's I know the number based on the glossies that we sell. I don't know the number based on people that took a picture with them.
All right. Now, was he charging for just people taking pictures with him?
Yes, we did 30, 30, 50.
Okay. Well, good for him. I actually saw Danhausen the night before at the freelance show. I think he wrestled for the world title the night before.
Yep.
And that was an awesome match. So good to see him have a great weekend out there with you guys and with freelance. So as far as Homecoming is concerned, what is new to announce as far as matches from Homecoming? I think we already talked about Parker Boudreaux's match.
Yep. He's facing Easy Orlandi. He works for freelance a lot. We have Zilla versus JDX. I think we covered the cage matches. Okay. We have Maggie versus J-Rod. We have Brick McCarthy versus Silas Young for the RPW Heavyweight Championship.
Awesome.
By that time, Brick McCarthy will be the longest reigning champion of RPW history.
Yeah, that's funny. I noticed on the two nights that I was out in Wisconsin, the length of his title reign when he was announced continued to grow. It was like one night was 6 months on his title reign or something. I think he was announced as being champion for a year and a half on November 1st, and then like 2 years on November 2nd. Is that part of the gimmick?
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of one of those gimmicks, like how Mr. Anderson's weight always used to go up by 1 pound every time he announced himself.
It's very possible. That's the Devin thing. Like I don't really micromanage what he says, so he very well might have said that.
That's funny. But yeah, he has been champion for almost 2 years now. I mean, by May he will be, right?
I think he became champion November 3rd of 2023. So he's just over a year.
Okay. And so he's going to take on Silas.
Sorry, Devin, for blowing it.
What's that?
Yeah. I was just saying, sorry, Devin, for blowing your introduction of 2 years. It hasn't been 2 years.
I think he's good. Okay, so so those are all the matches you have announced for Homecoming?
Yep.
And the Maggie Lee, is that announced on social media yet, or are you announcing that here?
It's not announced on social media yet. There are people that are guessing it because of the poster. We don't have the graphics yet, but we can announce it here that will happen.
Awesome. You heard it first. Maggie Lee versus Lily Ruiz at Homecoming.
Nope.
Sorry. Maggie.
Lower reasons.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say Maggie Lee is facing J Rod at home.
J-Rod. Right. Sorry. It's Maggie Lee and Lily Ruiz in September.
Correct.
Okay.
Assuming that J Rod doesn't win the title, yes.
Right. So the match is still going regardless of the title, or no?
Yes.
Okay. Did anything that happened at Redemption affect Destiny? Like, are there new matches to announce for Destiny post Redemption, or are we now already too far out still?
Destiny is still pretty far out. Like we have most of them set, but like right now there's 10 matches for Destiny. So like that's kind of a WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Uh, like Brick McCarthy is facing Nick Colucci. Ken is facing Silas. We've announced that one.
Mhm.
What else? Maggie is facing Lily. Casey is facing Jordan Blue.
Mhm.
Rampage is facing ZK47. Jax is facing Isaiah Moore. And like right now, these are title matches, but like we're doing the WrestleMania 13 logic of you're facing that person whether it's a title match or not.
Right.
And you might have the person that's not champion at the moment might be champion and might actually you might have a chance to be a champion based on that match, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely it does. So at Redemption, I know that you had already been selling tickets for Homecoming and you'd already been selling tickets for Destiny. But at the show, what is your sort of tactic to sell tickets for the next two events? Like, do you encourage people during the intermission to go buy tickets, or how do you handle that?
We tell Devin to plug it constantly. So like our thing is we do $10 off by buying in advance, just generally. So like if they buy front row tickets are $40 at the door, they're $30 in advance. So our front row is already gone for both of those events. Our second row is almost gone for both of them. And then we do have a third row for Destiny. But then everything else is GA. Like Wapaka holds over 800 for the bleachers. So like people will be fine if they wait till the day of. They won't. They'll be able to get in. They'll be fine.
Okay.
Pretty much same for same for Appleton, where there will be bleachers set up where they can get in, and you don't have to get them in advance if you don't want to. Like, but it's encouraged because it's cheaper.
Right. And I forget, are you guys selling, like when Devin is plugging the shows, is he telling people, hey, go see Rich and Raina for tickets at intermission, or are you guys not doing that?
He tells them go see him whenever. Go see him like before the show, during the show, after the show. Like there's times where I have to get up to do stuff, but Raina's right next to me with the merchandise, so like she has a ticket to buy her. So like she knows like if it's GA, obviously it's a lot easier, but if it's seating, I gotta kind of be there if they want an aisle seat because she may not know which seats are aisle. Like I know them, it's 1, 12, 13, 24, 25, 36, 37, 48, but not everybody knows that.
Right. So what do you have so you're just doing that in your mind then, and you're keeping sort of tabs, or you got like a paper map somewhere that you're referencing to? Like on site?
I haven't memorized. I haven't memorized, but like we tell people like so the Destiny one's a little more complex because like we kept it where it was the same ticket. So like I'm trying to remember it in my head. So it'd be 49, 60, 61, 72, 73, 84, 85, 96, I believe.
Uh-huh.
For aisle seats.
That's impressive.
Pretty much every 12 seat is an aisle seat.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I did that off top.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty impressive. Okay, so any other news? Redemption, Homecoming, Destiny, anything else to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
Not that I can think of. Everything is kind of just going along. Like we'll be releasing graphics shortly for each of the matches. It's just a matter of we're so far out that we gotta kind of let it's kind of go work its way in.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we're gonna oversaturate our crowd.
Yes. Okay. Well, so while I got you here, we talked briefly off air before we hit record about some news stories that are going on in the wrestling business that we wanted to talk about. You got time for that?
I do.
Awesome. So I wanted to start. You and I have been talking about WWE ID for a few weeks now. We've hit on a lot of aspects of WWE ID's place in the business and its effect on the business. And in the last couple of weeks, so the last show I did by myself, I reviewed an IWC show, the International Wrestling Cartel. In fact, actually, you and I talked about it when we previewed coming shows for that week. It's that Reset Button show. And
Yep.
so in that Reset Button show, they had an advertised triple threat match to be chosen by the Reset Button, and the winner would be the number one contender to their Super Indy title. Their Super Indy
Okay.
title, leading into the show, was being held by former WWE star, now known as Elijah, formerly Elias. And Elijah had won that title from Holloway, I believe, at the last show or two shows ago. So he hadn't been champion that long. And when they posted that, or when the Reset Button, or when they were sorry, no, Holloway versus Elijah in a rematch for the Super Indy title was the only posted match that they advertised. So when I saw that, I said, okay, Holloway's winning the title back probably. Elijah's not going to spend
Yep.
his entire career in Pittsburgh. So I thought Holloway was going to win the title anyway, but then they advertised this triple threat with the Reset Button, and one of the three people chosen for the Reset Button match was WWE ID talent Marcus Mathers. And Marcus Mathers is a guy that I've seen hundreds of times, that's not fair, dozens of times probably at various promotions. He's everywhere these days. And Holloway's a guy I'm just getting familiar with. But when I saw Mathers come in, and then the Reset Button chose two other people, one of which was Spencer Slade, who is like a mainstay out there in IWC. My first thought was, okay, the IWC's guy's going to win it. But he didn't. Marcus Mathers won it. And then I believe it was the next match or two matches later, Holloway did go on, defeat Elijah, and win the Super Indy title back. And after that match, Marcus Mathers comes down and immediately challenges Holloway to a match for the Super Indy title that night, a WWE ID Showcase match that obviously had been booked or thought of well in advance, planned for. And I saw someone post, and this is what put into my head, whether it was good for the promotions to be chasing WWE ID talent, to be at the expense of others, or to be, marking out over the WWE ID rub that you might be able to get or whatever. And I thought that was interesting, especially since they brought in Mathers and then had him do the match that night. But then in the next 2 weeks, I saw them do that exact same match at Future Stars in Vegas and Full Impact Pro. And all of those matches were mentioned, posted about, discussed, advertised on the WWE ID Twitter. So this is, to me, it's obvious this is becoming a thing. WWE ID showcases are, let's say, if nothing else, all the rage right now. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, it's 100% fair. It's a matter of I'm trying to figure out if they're trying to do the WWE ID thing like a tough enough, or are they trying to do it like the AAA logic of we're going to call you up, we're just not going to tell you when.
Right. Yeah, and it feels like I don't know. So if they're booking, so this example of Mathers versus Holloway 3 times in 3 weeks, obviously
Yep.
promoters are clamoring to get a piece of the WWE ID. Do you think when we talked off air, I mentioned them essentially hot shotting, and I think you agree that them doing this like Mathers shows up, wins the number one contendership, and then that night they have him face Holloway in a showcase match. That's hot shotting, isn't it?
It is, and it's one of those things where I would look it from the talent perspective and go, if I'm doing multiple matches for that company, I need extra for doing the work. And there's going to be promotions out there that are going to be like, well, no, we agreed to this set amount. We can choose what we want to do with you. I'm a promoter that feels differently in that. If you do multiple matches, you should get multiple paydays.
Do you feel like you're doing any of your other regular guys a disservice? And when I say guys, I mean all the people who perform for you. I don't mean to be sexist, but all your
Yeah.
other performers. Do you feel like if you were, I know we've talked before, you haven't really spoken with the WWE ID people and you've not booked any WWE ID Showcase matches, so this is all hypothetical. But
So
is that something you'd be interested in doing in the first place? Like, do you think there's a marketing aspect of it that would benefit you?
I think it depends on what city you're running. Like, I mean, we're running Wapak, Wisconsin, which is 7,000 people. They're running Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Las Vegas, and where's the other one? LA?
Yes. Oh no, sorry, Florida,
Okay.
South Florida.
Oh, South Florida. Okay. So, like, all those are big markets where you can get away with it more because you're not flying in a lot of the other talent, if that makes sense on that aspect. Like, I look at everything based on financial gain compared to financial loss.
Right. Do you feel like there is an aspect of this? And again, we're talking about purely theoretical because it's just in its infant stages, but do you feel like there's an aspect of this
Yep.
that is short-term gain versus long-term sacrifice, maybe? But you know what I mean? Like in the long term of allowing these guys to come in and sort of take over your card. I know that's exaggerating, but do you see the point I'm making?
Oh, I 100% see it. It's one of those where it all depends on how you're running. Are you running twice a year, 4 times a year, 12 times a year? Like, what are you running? If you're running monthly and you're doing it, you're gonna run yourself right out because you're not gonna be able to afford it.
Hmm.
If you're doing spot shows, like we're pretty much spot shows. Like we're not doing weekly TV or anything like that. Like we pretty much just want to get our crowd interested. Like I would say we're running closer to how main event is running than anything else.
Hmm.
Where we're running 3 to 4, 3 to 5 shows a year, trying to get people to come to every show. Where if you run monthly, you may not get that same crowd every single show.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll tell you, listen, so the Mathers Holloway match was the best match on the card. And so it's in that sense,
Okay.
to me, it was worth it. They probably went about 20 minutes, and
Okay.
Mathers had a furious comeback and got put down. Then there was a post-match beatdown where Holloway declared himself the king of WWE ID. Then Mathers attacked him again. So I mean, they put in the work for sure. And I got to imagine, I know, like you said, you haven't really talked too much with these guys, but I got to imagine their booking fees are going up as soon as they're ID'd, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I haven't talked to them specifically, but like I can imagine as soon as they get ID'd, their booking fee went up.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it's one of those things where say you have Kylie Ray on your show before she gets ID'd,
Hmm.
are you going to get her for that same rate? I've never talked to her per se, but there's a chance that it could have gone up. And to me, it's justified. Like if you got called up, then that's awesome. Like you never want to sell yourself short of the talent. So like there's gonna be promoters that don't agree with me, but I'm all for talent over the company because
Right.
without the talent, the company doesn't work.
Uh-huh. And you said something before. Two things. First, you said that you've never spoken to Kylie Ray.
I have not. I've emailed her before trying to get her in, but we've never talked.
Okay. Because she performs a lot out your way.
She does. She lives in Chicago.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned was, and I want to clarify, when you said when you booked them before they're ID'd and then after the rate's going to go up, are you referring to a situation where the rate might change for the same booking? Meaning, like, let's just say hypothetically, we're talking about Kylie Ray. You book Kylie in December for a show in June, and in March
Yep.
she gets ID'd. Are you saying that you think during that course the rate would go up for that one show?
It's possible. I mean, and with it being that far out, she'd be totally justified, in my opinion. But I can't speak about every other promotion. Some promotions would disagree with me.
Right.
If it's like a month before and you already agreed on the principle, then you can work out it like then you should be able to do that show for whatever you agree to.
Yep. So this actually this gives me the ability to transition into the next topic. So I want to ask you first, what if that conversation doesn't take place until the day of the show? The increase rate.
It goes by, yep, to me, it would go by, is this person really going to make or break us? If they're going to make or break us, you might do the Ultimate Warrior method of take care of them, and then you don't do business
Never see you again.
after that.
Right.
Yep.
So that would be your tack. If someone was tried to, if we'll say hold you up, but if someone tried to raise their rate or try to change the terms or something on the day of the show, depending on who they were, you might acquiesce to those things, but then you just never deal with them again.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's some talent that if they're not big enough or not worth it, because again, it seems like every time you talk about this stuff, it's all about whether the bottom line fits. So it's just a matter of, so if these guys don't make your bottom line fit, then you won't even acquiesce. You'll just be like, dude, hit the road.
Pretty much. And I've been lucky. I've never had that happen.
Right. Now, one guy who's not lucky, who did have that happen, or at least allegedly, I don't know the specifics of this, and I believe they're called Big Time Professional World. Oh, goodness gracious! It's the promotion. It's the Heinz promotion in Ohio, and they had Matt Riddle booked for a show a couple weeks ago. And then the promoter out there had posted some screenshots of a conversation that he had with Matt Riddle's girlfriend or his wife, I think. And again, I don't know what happened. I just know what I read in the screenshots, which have since been deleted. But the gist of what I saw was that the girlfriend or the wife, whatever she is, I don't remember, had sort of announced to this guy the morning of, hey, I'm Matt Riddle's manager now. I take care of all these things. And the promoter said, well, I've always dealt with Matt directly. And, she said, basically, it's changing now. And it's the day of the show. And according to the screenshots that I saw, I have no idea whether they're real or not. All I know is what I saw. It appeared to me that they were asking for $5,000 for the show with a $2,000 deposit, and that conversation hadn't happened until that day. This is what you and I are just sort of talking about as we transitioned. And I don't necessarily want to talk about Matt Riddle specifically, unless you'd like to talk to me about whether you think he specifically is the kind of guy you would acquiesce to or not. But in general, if you get a call like that saying, I need a deposit, that no one even mentioned a deposit before, and my rate, and I expect this much of the merchandise money, and all of these terms that are brand new on the day of, you're basically saying, okay, well, if you're going to make me money, I'm still going to do it.
Depending on the person and depending on how much is invested in it, it's very possible. But if it's someone that didn't sell a lot in advance, then I would probably say no. But the problem with the logic is that a lot of these people are requiring airfare and hotels, so you're eating that cost as well if you don't deal with it. So it's a rock and a hard place. Like, I would probably do it for our fans' sake, but it would definitely be the last time I dealt with the individual.
Right. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, and I'm not going to ask you what you pay any specific wrestler, but the number $5,000 is something I hadn't seen before. So I want to know, as a promoter, is $5,000 a shocking number to you, or is it one you see frequently?
I don't see it frequently. I've heard the number before, but I've never agreed to it. We'll go with that.
Right. No, absolutely. And again, this is all hypothetical. I know you're not in talks to do any of these things, but hypothetically, would the Wapaka show be the kind of show where if you were gonna do something big like that, that would be the show?
I would say Appleton would probably be a little bit more because it's a different crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've never ran there before. Where Wapaka, we're hoping to get a lot of our same crowd, but like there's a lot of people that have come to the Wapaka shows that they only come to the Wapaka shows. So like we kind of look I look at all our tickets whenever anyone orders online. I know exactly where they live.
Mhm.
So like I can kind of market our mapping system based on all that stuff. Like, hey, we gotta hit this area, hit this area, hit this area.
Right.
And a lot of stuff is south, but like we're hoping to get it back in the Appleton, Green Bay area to go to Wapaka, 60 miles away,
Mhm.
where that's not always going to be the case. But like I would say our biggest draw for Wapaka would be Zilla. But like it's just one of those things where a lot of stuff is based on the talent also plugging the show.
Right.
So like I saw the stuff you were talking about. Matt Riddle was plugging the show or not going into it. I know he works for AAW out of Chicago, and from what I've heard, he's their champion. Like they do good business together.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm just forming this opinion based on what we're talking about here, but are there, I don't want to say flaky, but have you dealt with talents before that seem to do really well in a certain environment and could be complete flakes in another?
100%.
Really? So does it have to do with, you think, the promoters, the environment? Do you think, like, what would make a guy like Matt Riddle be, beholden to AAW and do a great job for them, and then allegedly skipping these other shows because he doesn't care? How does that make sense in the wrestling world?
In the wrestling world, like we are the group that will pay in advance. So like, we're taking a huge risk. Like just say hypothetically, we did bring in a Matt Riddle. That if the number is that, we pay him his booking fee. If that happens and he no shows us, we're out the money until he pays us back.
Mm-hmm.
And there's companies that don't want to do security deposits, let alone do full payment. So it just depends on the company.
Right. And now, talking about we're not talking about Matt Riddle specifically, but again, I'm just using these numbers to illustrate a bigger point. If a talent like Matt Riddle, someone who you agreed or would agree to pay a $5,000 booking fee for, if you were bringing them in for your show, is it my understanding from talking to you before that for the most part, the issue of a deposit probably wouldn't have come up because you would have offered one in advance, right?
Oh, 100%. Like I try to get people to do deposits, if not do the whole booking fee, just because I don't want the headache at the day of the show.
And so again,
if I had,
go ahead.
I was gonna say if I had my way, every single person would be paid before the show ever started.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we're very new school in that aspect, where a lot of promotions pay the day of the show or pay after a day or two after because they got to count all the money and put it in the bank accounts and all that stuff and wire it. But like I just do it where I don't have to worry about it. They got paid, we address it, it's good, we're good.
Mm-hmm. If you were going to I'm just sticking with this $5,000 number because you just said you've never paid it. So I'm just curious. So if you just said you like to pay people in advance, usually their whole fee if you can, especially if you trust them. On a $5,000 booking fee, would that be something you would offer to pay that much in advance? Or would you probably offer a deposit of about half or something like that?
I would do at least half. It depends on how much I know the person or who they're networking with. So like I have people that I network with where I will talk to them and be like, hey, is this person would you trust this person if I give them their whole booking fee? And if the answer is yes, then I probably would. If their answer is they've skipped a couple bookings, they're a little flaky, then probably not.
Right. And one of the other things that was mentioned in there, and I'm really interested in this stuff, you are more than welcome. Please stop me if you don't want to talk about some of these numbers because I'm very interested in them and I'll push. But the one thing I noticed from that story also was that in the screenshots that I saw, again, I don't know the authenticity of them, but in the screenshots that I saw, in addition to the $5,000 match fee that was being asked, which again might be perfectly reasonable. I don't know the booking fees. That has nothing to do with me. But she also said something to the effect of not only does Mr. Not only does Matt want the 5,000 for the match, but he also expects to get 100% of his merch money. And that struck me as interesting because I assumed those guys got 100% of their merch money. Is that not the norm?
It depends on the company. Some companies might pay a little more to get a cut of the merch. Um, I've never done it that way. I do it where we may get a cut of their meet and greet, but not their merch because they're paying for their own merch. Like it's not like we're printing their merch.
Mm-hmm. So you're taking a
So
piece of the
like
meet and
I
greets
stay
basically because you're selling tickets for that, right? So you did some work on that end.
100%, and plus like if we get a cut of their meet and greet, we're the ones printing the glossies,
Oh, okay.
and then like we're the ones obviously paying the camera guy to take pictures and all that stuff.
Okay. So that's not really an unusual requirement. It's really a promotion thing. Some people just give the guys all their table money.
Yeah, generally, yeah. Like I mean, like I've talked to talent before where they require 100% of their meet and greet and their merchandise, and the merchandise I get 100%. The other one I do not
Right.
because most people's tickets for indie shows are anywhere between $10 to $50, and if your booking fee is that high, there's no way to recoup it just on the one person, let alone not having other people to pay.
Yes. Interesting.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, you got to think of it this way: if you don't own a ring, you don't own the building. Those are two things you're paying for right away. Plus, you have probably 6 or 7 other matches. Like you're looking at easily, even if it's a local show, you're looking at easily $8,000 to $12,000 just based on that one name that you're bringing in.
Does having a guy, anybody, but let's just stick with this story. Just talk about we'll say any big name talent, big headline kind of talent that you bring in. If we talked about that, depending on who they are, you might acquiesce to demands day of, or you might not. Does that kind of thing trickle down to the locker room? Like, if you were to acquiesce the Ultimate Warrior plan to somebody, is there a negative response in the locker room in any way? Does that get to them? Do they know?
Um, it doesn't get to them for me, but I mean, people talk. So like the only people I talk numbers to are my people that are profit sharing, but that's about it.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's no numbers involved as far as talking to people.
Hmm. Okay. But the bull.
I'm very tight-lipped on numbers.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's probably smart. But the quote unquote boys, they're not usually tight-lipped, right?
Oh,
I mean,
100%. They're try and talk to each other and try and get as much as they can, but like we pay probably the best in the area that I know of. So like them trying to get more is kind of redundant.
so my other question to you is I remember when I was younger or growing up, and honestly, I think just until recently is when I started seeing a change in this sort of overall opinion in the social circles. But the idea always was, if you're working at a job in an office, you don't talk to other people about what you make. You don't talk about money. And in the last few years, we've seen this new Gen Z sort of take the approach of, no, it's very good that we talk money because then we all know if we're getting screwed and we can all go to the boss and it's transparency. Um,
Yep.
with respect to the wrestling as the boss, how do you feel about that? Like, are you happy that they talk numbers and that they might know what the other person's booking fees are and then come to you to try to use that as leverage? Is that something you view as the market, or do you view that as trouble?
I view it as trouble. I've had it before where we've had the discussion with talent, and I'm like, I can tell you that that number is incorrect, but at the same point, I'm not going to give you their number.
Hmm.
Um, there's times where everything is misconstrued as far as like they're counting numbers sometimes on airfare and hotel as part of their booking fee, and that's not. I don't count that. I count a booking fee as this is your whole dollar amount. It's not your airfare is 450, your hotel's 120, or whatever. Like I just care about whatever the number is that we're paying that individual.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the hotel and airfare really is irrelevant to them.
Right. Because it's sort of included in every booking. So, and they don't really see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I mean, because if you use Sky Miles, you can get a flight for $12. That could have cost $500 or whatever, even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said that saves you a lot of money, actually. You use that a lot.
I do. I try to, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to these guys in the locker room, if they're talking numbers, they're talking business or whatever, and they're getting each other sort of riled up and causing problems.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to eject anybody from your locker room, or problems that escalated that highly?
No, like pretty much I've had it where I pretty much tell talent if they have an issue, I'm the owner of the company, but I'm also HR. If you have a serious issue, call me. We'll talk. Um, I have non-biased opinion, and we'll come to a solution
Right.
one way or another. Like I have zero problem with talent asking me for a raise. Just tell me the justification for the raise.
Mhm.
If you can justify it, I'm all for it. If you can't, then I'm gonna probably say no.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of HR, that's a good point because the other thing in the news that we talked about a little bit off air that I wanted to mention to you, and I kind of was transitioning talking about kicking people out of the locker room. I know you said you hadn't seen, but we talked about before the show a little bit these accusations that Kevin Ryan, who is a wrestler in a stable called the Good Hand with Shook D and Alex Kane and a couple of others out in Action Wrestling in the Southeast. I believe they run mostly in Tennessee. That the first thing I saw this week was a post by Action Wrestling, which since has been deleted, saying that we have cut all ties with Kevin Ryan. And so obviously I went looking into it. And the next thing I saw was Shook D from that stable posted something saying, to be very clear, the only members of the Good Hand are me, Alex Kane, blah, blah, blah. And he left out Kevin Ryan. And then I went to Twitter and I saw the accusations that were being made. And again, I don't know the validity of these accusations. I have no dog in this fight, and I am not saying anything about Kevin Ryan because nobody knows the truth, but a handful of people. But the accusations coming from another wrestler, Sigrid from Action, who posted on her Twitter some screenshots of some texts involving Kevin Ryan and some inappropriate conduct towards teenage girls, trying to hit on them, sending them inappropriate genitalia photos and things of that
Yep.
nature. Again, I don't know if those things are true, but you mentioned HR a minute ago. And
Yep.
if something like this comes to you, accusations of serious, again, I'm not serious sexual misconduct, let's just say, in your locker
Yep.
room, how would you deal with it?
The person would be fired instantly because I'm not going to have anyone feel uncomfortable working for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple.
Would it be something where you would fire first and ask questions later?
It depends on what it was. If it was pedophile-ish, I'd probably fire him instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't deal with that as a promoter. The stigma of having that going around.
Right.
Like it's just a very bad message sent to stuff because like people will already have stereotypes of wrestling. You don't need that in there.
Yeah, and this is something this is not an isolated incident. Again, we don't know if it's true, but there have been numerous accusations against numerous wrestlers for the past 40 years. But in the recent past, there have been accusations that have been leveled. I think they called it the Speak Out movement from 2020 and 2021, where a lot of wrestlers got taken down for things that they had done. Guys like Joey Ryan, who got taken down. Have you ever been close to a situation, any of those speak out situations from then, or maybe one that wasn't publicized? Anything that involves sexual harassment or sexual misconduct, either in the locker room or around you in the business?
We had an issue where there was talent that didn't want to work with Tessa, and Tessa was very professional with us. So like I didn't really have an issue per se, but like it definitely was out there where people didn't want to work with her, and I'm like I respect it, and that's totally fine.
Mhm.
Um, I believe people deserve second chances.
Mhm.
Was she wrong at what she did? Yes. Um, but I never had that issue with Tessa. Like Tessa was very good to
Mhm.
us. I worked with Joey Ryan in the past, like not for RPW, but like actually worked with him when I was a referee. He didn't have the same gimmick as he does when he had all the accusations. So
Wait,
I
you say he
can't
didn't
really
he
speak
didn't
on
have
his
that gimmick
part.
when you worked with him? It came later?
He it came later, like it wasn't as risque when I worked with him as it is now.
Mhm.
When he got pretty much blackballed by a lot of places.
Right. And so you're saying there were a lot of talent back then that didn't want to deal with even that version of it.
Correct. Correct.
And if somebody, so that's a good point. Now, what we started talking about was specific allegations against somebody in your locker room, but then you moved on to Tessa, and that brings up an interesting point. So that's kind of the only color I see is green thing, right? Like it's, people deserve second chances. And if it's not something like you said, like pedophile, it's over, X, over, done, done. But as
Yep.
long as it's something that's a little more gray area, as long as you can still make money on the bottom line, and the person who did the thing that was wrong seems to be trying to make up for it, you're going to consider it. At least consider it.
I'm gonna consider it. I'm gonna consider it. Like I mean, when we talked to her, she was 100% professional with us. Like, I think she's changed a lot of her life. Like she's back in TNA now, so um, people make mistakes. I'm not here to crucify or anything. Like that's in the past. Like everyone's got their own opinion on it, and as far as I'm concerned, I think you move on from it. Like WWE's given second chances to multiple people that have had problems. So
Right.
on the indie scene, I have zero problem with it.
Right. Now, is that something that, you mentioned that some of the workers, some of the performers for you had reservations about working with Tessa. Did you do any kind of market research for your fans, like about bringing her in and whether that would affect your bottom line, whether there was going to be a negative response there?
Mostly it was positive. We got a lot of people that have never been to RPW that came to our show
Hmm.
because nobody else is using her in the area. Like the only place I think they used her was a place in Chicago that doesn't even run anymore. That was the I can't remember what they're called. They were out of Chicago that they had all the women that ended up being in the Royal Rumble like 2 or 3 years ago, where they all worked for that same promotion.
You're not talking about Shimmer, are you?
Yes, I am talking Shimmer. That's what it was. Yep, Shimmer. So like, I think that's the only one I can remember her being in was Shimmer.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. But like I said, like something like the allegations that we were talking about today, the sexual misconduct allegations, you're not gonna bring someone like that back in unless
Nope.
they've gotten like completely 100% exonerated, right?
I would sexual anything. I would probably be more keen not to bring them in just because of the backlash of, oh, we have kids at our shows. I
Right.
don't need parents thinking we're introducing people to that stuff.
Right.
Like, gonna sound like a slippery slope, but I promote wrestling. I don't promote prostitution.
Right. So the question I have for you, I guess, on the intergender matches is allegations like these, one's against Kevin Ryan, one's against Joey Ryan that we know about, Marty Skrull. Are they things that is that another, let's say, brick in the wall for your opposition to intergender matches? Is that just another factor of why they're not really something you're into?
A lot of it just comes down to I have had friends that have had domestic abuse, and it's very hard for me to be their friend and promote mixed matches because like there's people that the wrestling aspect to the real life they can't separate the two, so it's it's very hard for me to say I got your back 100%, but we're gonna have this intergender match and you gotta like it.
Right.
So like I don't really care for it, and plus it's like there's certain spots I would not be comfortable with when you do intergender matches. I'm not very comfortable with the body slams, the power bomb, stuff like that, for obvious reasons.
Right. So if you're not into the power bombs and the body slams, you're definitely not into the intergender dick flips, I'm guessing.
No.
And I think he did intergender matches where he did that spot, didn't he, Joey?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And again, I told you before, I'm more of a fan of intergender matches than you are, but even I don't think I'm interested in that. And especially
It's
more.
just so hard to.
I was going to say, but more, it's something where the potential for HR sexual harassment stuff to come out of that, I think is pretty big to do a spot like that with a woman.
100%, and it's just one of those things where I'm not going to put myself in that situation.
Right.
And a lot of women will work for RPW because they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I would say there's probably 2% of males that would probably be bad examples for the intergender matches, where 98 would be perfect for them and do them professionally. But I'm, as a owner of I'm not going to risk that unless I know that they've done multiple ones and they're comfortable working with that person.
Right.
Like if they're doing an intergender match, they've worked with them several times. Otherwise, I'm not touching that match.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Rich, I think we've been going for a little over an hour now. So I think I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate you coming on. You've been a big help to the show, and it's always a blast having you on. So I'm hoping you'll keep coming back.
I would love to come back. You just let me know when and where, and I will be there.
Absolutely. I'll give you a call maybe next week or the week after. All right.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rich. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, it's always good to have Rich Buchholtz on the show. We thank him for coming on. I look forward to him coming back on in the future. I look forward to you being able to be part of those interviews too, Jon. But here today, as we're still getting your feet wet on the show, let's go over some upcoming shows. What's coming up this weekend, all right?
Sounds good, man.
All right. So on Thursday, February 6th, Memphis Wrestling is having a seminar. Former WWE Cruiserweight Champion and current WWE producer agent Jamie Noble is coming to Memphis Wrestling to conduct a tryout and pro wrestling seminar on February 6th for pro wrestlers, aspiring pro wrestlers, referees, and managers. All experience levels are welcome. Check out the Memphis Wrestling social media. I found this on Facebook. For more information about how to register for the seminar if you are interested. Jon, Jamie Noble?
Hey, man. One of my favorite, white trash gimmicks of all time. Him and, what was it, Nadia?
Nydia.
From Tough Enough. Nydia from Tough Enough. Great gimmick. Jamie Noble, great cruiserweight, very underrated. Could flat out go, man. Could flat out go. Mm-hmm. If he, as Vince would say, if he was only 6 inches taller.
That's exactly right. I mean, that guy has got every single thing.
Or nowadays, he's the perfect size.
Right. Wasn't he the one that was like under the mask in like the Young Dragons in WCW at the end?
Yep. That was Jamie Noble.
Oh,
exactly.
Man, he can do anything.
Good pull, man. Good pull.
And look, I'm not super proud to say this, but I am saying it for everybody to hear. So, there's a piece of me that had a crush on Redneck Nydia. I'm not gonna lie to you. Redneck Nydia had me going. He's got no comment.
Next.
Of course, he knows some of my former girlfriends. But anyway, we won't get into that. Also on Thursday, Insane Wrestling Revolution is going to be holding Armageddon at the Monroe Fraternal Order of Police. featuring Sami Callihan versus Rhino in an insane rules match. That's going to be a badass match.
Oof. That's going to be a banger right there.
Mm-hmm. Where are you on Callahan? I thought he was going to be bigger than he's gotten.
I think what derailed him was, he got a lot of bad press after what was the baseball bat, the Eddie Edwards eyeball. I think he just kind of dipped after that. I don't know really what happened. I mean, obviously, it was an accident in the ring from everything I understood. It was kind of, hey, things happen, forgive and forget. But man, he just never seemed to pick that momentum back up.
Right. And then he lost the Impact title, I think, to Tessa, if I remember correctly.
So he was who lost to Tessa. Speaking of awesome intergender matches, and women that could flat out go. Absolutely. So yeah, he's an enigma to me, man. I don't know why he's not bigger. He is, whether it's Sami Callihan, Solomon Crow, whatever you want to call him. He's a badass.
No doubt. Also on that show, Cal Hero will be taking on Xavier. The EH Team Special Forces, or A Team Special Forces, I guess it is, versus the Rascals, who I know you know, for the tag titles.
Definitely know the Rascals.
Yeah. And, it was a shame to see how they ended up getting broken up in WWE. But they're all back together now.
Yeah, but to me, they are with the agreement they got going on. I watched something the other night that had the three of them. It was great. I believe it was a Saturday night main event. They haven't missed a beat, man. I mean, those guys are human versions of ADHD. They're great.
Hell yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's true. Also on that show, Kitty LaFleur is going to be taking on Mila Moore. For any of you who know Mila from Florida promotions like Shine and CCW, she's also the IWC Women's Champion right now up in Pittsburgh. She's everywhere. Mila Moore's everywhere. And then also for the World Championship, we got Silas Young taking on Ace Austin. Another two guys I think you're familiar with, right?
Yeah, Silas Young, the the oldest young man I've ever seen. I love Silas.
Him and Arn Anderson, right? Like they both looked like they were 40 when they were 19.
Arn Anderson, exactly. And hey, man, as a newly minted old man myself, I appreciate that. Ace Austin, love Ace Austin. Another guy that he's got all the tools, man. He's got the look. Again, you're just kind of waiting for that breakthrough for him.
Yeah. And just to clarify something, you're going with newly minted?
I am newly minted. Actually, I'm young until next year. Then I'll be newly minted.
If you're newly minted,
I'm oldly minted young man.
That's exactly right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so also on Thursday, New Texas Pro is having their Contender Series number 47 at the Houston Premier Arena in Houston, Texas, featuring in the main event O'Day versus Jay Davis 3 for the Texas Contender Series Championship. I did get to see the last match in that series. I don't remember seeing the first one, but these guys kick ass in the ring. Buzzsaw Samuels and Natalie Sykes will be taking on Rachel Rose and Sir Ronan Reyes. And the Southside Connection will be taking on the 8th Day in a tag team contest. On moving to Friday, Premier Wrestling Federation is holding their event called Fury at Mac Daddy's in Cape Carteret, North Carolina, featuring an intergender tag team match with Ella Envy and BK Westbrook taking on the Fighters Club. Caitlin Marie defending the undisputed title against Kurt Robinson. Tenshi X taking on Tungsten Red, and the High Flying Star Machines defend the tag titles against August Fears and John Schuyler. Have you seen John Schuyler in TNA, or did you see him in MCW when he was down here?
It's not ringing a bell for me now.
Okay. I only saw him a handful of times at MCW, and he's definitely a lower mid Carter in TNA, so he's not somebody who's frequently on, but you'll see him. I'm trying to remember who he was with. He's in a stable in TNA, and it's just not coming.
Sure, it's one of those. As soon as I see him, I'll be like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's funny. The one thing that's really crazy is when my dad and I went to like the first or second MCW show we ever went to. My dad pointed at him. That's why I remember his name mostly, because my dad pointed up to the ring and he went, "That guy is going to be somebody."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, man. Bill Richards' seal of approval. I'm not going to call it wrong.
Yeah.
You
Good luck to you on
do
that.
so at your own peril.
Yeah, my dad will
Yeah,
still beat both
do
our
so
asses.
at your own peril. Yes, sir.
He just turned 70. You weren't ready to fight him yet?
I'm gonna wait. He's still walking, right?
He is still walking and breathing.
Yeah, no. Yeah, then no interest in an ass whooping.
Oh my goodness gracious. God, that's a 40-year-old running joke, and it's not dying anytime soon, I can tell you that.
No. And even if it did, I'm still not messing with it.
That's right. Let's see what else we got here. Wild Zero Wrestling is holding Night on the Town Part 1. I'm not sure when Part 2 is. But Night on the Town Part 1 is going to take place at the Fairpoint Brewing Company in Rochester, New York. We've got Bryce Pergol defending the NWF Pen Can TV title against Cheech. CJ Settles taking on Channing Decker. And Stardust, the tag team, not Cody Rhodes, taking on Primetime. In Canton, Georgia, we've got Southern Honor Wrestling 70, SHW 70 from the Action Wrestling Building in Canton. Aaron Dallas versus Todd Sexton. Kyle Matthews taking on Nick Halen for the Jake the Snake Legacy title. It's about damn time he got one, isn't it?
You would think. I mean, we're talking about the man, the myth, the legend, the Snake.
No one's ever going to kill that man. He is timeless, ageless, and indestructible as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. We got Grayson Pierce taking on Owen Knight. The aforementioned Alex Kane taking on Joey Hyder. And Joe Black taking on Alexander Lev for the Southern Honor title. John, if you've not seen Alexander Lev, he's another one that I'll recommend you take a look at.
The list.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's a list, believe me. The list just keeps getting longer and longer. It doesn't shorten. The more wrestling I watch, the longer the list seems to get. I don't know how that works, but it just always does. Let's see. So still on Friday, Action Packed Wrestling is holding Heartbreaks and Havoc at 110 Helen Street in Chester, South Carolina. I give the actual address here because best I can tell, that's an abandoned JP Liquidations or something like that. But hey, a space is a space.
Space is a space.
That's right. We've got JP Lehman versus Bobby Valentine versus Vinny Valentine versus Christopher Prince in a fatal 4-way. Chase Emery taking on Quan Anderson. Rob Killjoy versus Jashawn Evans. Jamal the Titan taking on Adam Honu. Curtis Robertson versus Savage Kincaid, and a winner's choice battle royal where the winner receives a title opportunity at any APW or WrestleForce championship in the future. Not a lot of battle royals going on this time of year, John, but a lot of promotions are having a Royal Rumble, their versions of the Royal Rumble.
Hey, man, I'll take it. I love me a good Rumble.
Me too. I can watch Rumbles all day long. I can't wait till they make the real Rumble 2 nights. I'll be there in person both nights.
Hey, man, I'm in.
Yeah, man, let's do it. River City Championship Wrestling is holding Wilton Warfare at the Wilton Community Center in Wilton, Wisconsin. Intergender tag match as Joey Avalon and Sierra take on 3BF, the champions, for the tag titles. Aaron Arsenal taking on Devlin Kane for the heavyweight championship. Jack Spade versus James Shelby. Asher Cade versus AC Riley for the Midwest Wrestling title. And the Blackguards versus the Shed Boys. I like that tag team name, the Blackguards.
I was kind of going with the Shed Boys, man. I thought that was our rap name in the 90s. What happened?
Damn, you're right. I forgot. You want to put some money on that match, or are we holding off?
I don't know. I mean, we're gonna see who can shine, right? Who can shine?
That's right. Let's see. Rounding out Friday out in Seattle, Washington, Defy Wrestling is holding their event called 100th. I think it's their 100th event, obviously, but I think it's also their 8th anniversary. That's going to be at Washington Hall in Seattle, Washington, featuring Joey Janela versus Paul Walterhauser from Cobra Kai in a Seattle street fight.
Oh my Lord. Listen, if there's ever one I gotta see, I'm gonna have to check this one out.
Yeah, no doubt. Because right behind it in the
We're
main
gonna have
event.
to find that one somewhere.
Yeah. Well, because in the main event, they got Ricky
Oh,
Starks taking on Kenta for the world title. My
ooh,
God.
oof. That is a match. Oh, brother.
Yeah, we talked earlier about a whole show being built around something. You can build a whole promotion around Ricky Starks versus Kenta.
Hey, Ricky Starks is getting ready to blow up. I'm telling you.
Oh.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I've been curious for years what the WWE machine was going to do with him. And I think it's going to be good things. I mean, he seems like he's tailor made for WWE, honestly.
Dude, he is one of the best on the mic right now. Every time he's got a mic in his hand, I can't stop watching. I love it.
Yeah, me too. C4 in a tag team match is going to be taking on the Bollywood Boys, who I've not seen since they were flanking Jinder Mahal.
Yeah,
I know I've heard their name around, but
I'm gonna say it's been a while since I've seen him.
yeah, I remember them being a fun tag team to watch way back before all that. But like I said, I haven't seen them in years. Marina Shafir, Roderick Strong's wife and MMA badass in her own, is the women's champion out there at Defy. She's going to be taking on Zamaya. Sinner and Saint taking on Los Desperados for the tag team titles. And Marcus Mathers, who we discussed earlier, taking on Nick Wayne. Where are you at on the patriarchy?
Eh.
Eh? All right, so look, I'm a Christian Cage mark, man. I love Christian Cage. I've always loved Christian better than Edge. That's me.
Christian's just never done it for me, man. He's just never done it for me. I don't know what it is. And I hope he doesn't find where I live and come beat my ass. He's always had weirdly long arms and I can't get into it.
Oh my gosh, fair enough. But you will at least admit that the damn promos he's cutting now are like next level, right?
Hey, listen, he's always been a promo machine. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it, like you said, with the run, whether you want to put him in the Brood, whether it was him and Edge, he was always the better talker of the bunch. That hasn't changed. It's only gotten better as he's gotten older.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so moving on to Saturday. Now this is a lot more than normal this week. So I apologize for the very long list, but on Saturday we've got Riot Pro Wrestling holding the St. Valentine's Day Massacre at Volusia Mall in Daytona Beach, Florida, featuring Chris Carnage versus Alejandro Bravo, Jacob Guile defending the Young Lions title versus Zakiris, Sean Scott defending the world title against Tanner Cruz, and a Valkyries division match between BB and Raven with a Y. Viral Pro Wrestling on Saturday is having battle lines at the Warren Road Community Center in Augusta, Georgia. Slim J versus John Schuyler in match number 2 of a best of 3 series. Where are you on Slim J?
Don't know enough about him to talk about him, to be honest.
All right, we'll come back to it. Let's see. Hunter James taking on Billy Brash for the. I told John I was going to rush him into this, and I'm not. This is me throwing John into the deep end on purpose and laughing inside. No, I'm kidding. Hunter James taking on Billy Brash for the VPW Outbreak title. Clara Carter taking on Erica Demia for the women's title. Have you gotten to see this? Is not me busting your balls. Have you gotten to see Erica Demia yet?
Just a few clips here and there. She looks the part. I haven't seen enough matches to see how she really rolls. But things right now look good. I'm definitely looking forward to, she's on my list and looking forward to catching more.
No doubt. I mean, I've had she's someone that's been on my list for a while because of, like you said, when you look at her, the character is flushed out, the look is flushed out. Those pieces are already in place. So if she can go halfway decent in the ring, she's already mostly there, in my opinion, at least. I'll be looking forward to your opinion on her once you get to see a couple more matches and whatever, because I think she's a star. She's one of those ones I've got on my trajectory list.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. Also on that show, Drew Hood is defending the world title, the VPW title, against former Dark Order member Preston Vance. He's been around. Has he been in TNA lately? Or is that Hell in Angels?
I believe that's Angels.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen much of Vance since the Dark Order kind of. I mean, they're still kind of the Dark Order, but
yeah, but I mean, they've kind of dropped the ball with that one. Just I think they just kind of ran their course. But no, I haven't seen Preston Vance in quite a while.
yeah. And you know what? You have the same problem with Dark Order that you are now having with the Wyatt Six, which is how long do you hold on to a legacy faction when it's dying? I don't know if you think the Wyatt Six is dying, but I already do.
I think they were pretty much dead on arrival. I love what they tried to do with it. It was great. I've always loved Bo Dallas. Bringing him back. The guys they've got in there individually, I think, are great. There's a lot of guys that could do a lot of stuff in there. But it's just, you hate to say it, but you just kind of got to let Bray go. It tragic the way it ended. I mean, you're talking about somebody that was on the trajectory of being on the Mount Rushmore, if you ask me. We talked about bringing British on to talk a little bit at some point. You and I look at Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Sting. That's how he views Bray. This kid was heartbroken. So, just kind of let it sit with its legacy. You know what I mean? And let these guys get out from under that and really shine in their own right.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I'm trying to find my place on here. So on Saturday, Emerge Wrestling is holding Emerge 85, Love and War, at the Bartholomew County Fairgrounds in Columbus, Indiana, featuring JD Mariana versus Dylan Bostic for the world title. I didn't get a chance to look at this because there was some issue between Joey Janela and Dylan Bostic this week, but I haven't really had a chance to look at it. Did you see any of that?
I did not.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at it. Maybe we'll talk about it next week or something because there was something going on. And Joey Janela was another one out there posting screenshots, I think, this week, but I have no idea what it was about.
I have a hard time believing Joey Janela had beef with somebody.
No, I know. It's crazy, right? Like,
I mean, it's unheard of.
Yeah, no, I watched Joey Janela throw a beer can or a water cup or something at a fan's head at an MCW show. And it was the only time he'd been there in like the 5 years I've been watching. So, there's Joey Janela being Joey Janela, I guess.
I guess.
Also on that show, Aaron Williams taking on Matt Diesel for the Outbreak Championship. Lovely Miss Larkin taking on Marty Bell for the women's title. And Dylan Cole taking on Lord Crew. In Bayville, New Jersey, the Bayville Elks Lodge, Titan Championship Wrestling is having a benefit for the Shriners Children's Hospital of Philadelphia called Wrestlers to the Rescue 2, featuring Elijah Eden versus Robbie Romero versus Brandon Downey in a triple threat match. Ben Castle versus Dr. Sleep, Anthony Gangone. Michael Fain versus Steve Mack for the unsanctioned TCW title in a no DQ match. And the Wrestlers to the Rescue Battle Royal, 100% of the proceeds donated. And I believe I saw also of the merch that they're selling or the 50-50 raffle, something like that. It's all going to the Shriners Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. A great cause.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'm a big proponent of this. I think wrestling needs to be a part of the community. I don't think if you're a wrestling promotion and you're not engaging and helping to benefit the community, you are basically dead on arrival as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's an awesome way to put some wrestlers to work for you.
No doubt.
Mean, what can be better? And love the name of it, Wrestlers to the Rescue Battle Royal. Come on, hey, who doesn't want to watch that?
Hell yeah, absolutely. Also close to Philadelphia in Woodbury, New Jersey, Atlantic All-Star Wrestling is having reemergence at the American Legion Post 133 out in Woodbury, New Jersey. Riot City's Most Wanted will be defending the tag titles against First Class. Matt Quay will be taking on Devious Cass, who is the super crazy heavyweight champion, but he won't be defending it here. Devious Cass is a guy who I think is an up-and-comer. The Miasma, Zach Ramsey's taking on Cade Lothbrook. And Southern Maryland's finest, Journey Burke Esquire, the Southern Maryland lawyer, taking on defending the women's title against Sammy Chaos. I don't know if you had any contact with Journey Burke Esquire yet.
No, but I feel like I've known a few Southern Maryland lawyers in my day, and um, you know, they are
Not
what they
good.
are.
Not good. Maybe Jerry Burke will change your mind from, whoever those other shady,
Maybe.
shady
Yeah,
fly-by-night lawyers
exactly.
are.
Oh, there's fucking it's damn ambulance chasers, man.
The
Yay,
worst.
yay, yay.
The absolute worst. Oh my gosh. Well, now on Saturday night, also, this is not as much. So I've been on this thing here on the show where I include MLW and NWA stuff to an extent, just because they're not really indies, but they're not really, the big time level. So I've been including this stuff in here, and there's a lot of good MLW stuff coming up. This Super Fight 6 on Saturday from Center Stage in Atlanta. Kenta versus Kevin Knight. We already talked about Kenta. He's amazing. But
Awesome.
Paul London versus Brett Ryan Gosselin.
Exciting.
A Paul London sighting.
Wow. Listen, I haven't seen anything. We brought it up a couple times. Lucha Underground. Paul London had a great run in Lucha Underground. Mm-hmm. So that was the last that I remember seeing him in anything in a while. So This will be great. I love Paul London.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's another part. I don't remember seeing Paul London in Lucha because I only saw the first season. So a lot of stuff. I apparently missed all the good stuff. But I don't know. I don't know what a honey trap match is, but I'm interested to find out.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
We also got Donovan Dijak taking on Filthy Tom Lawler. Dijak's been around the Indies ever since.
Match.
Yeah, it will, man. I love Tom Lawler's whole deal. And aside from the errant complaining or whining tweet after his release, I'm a huge Donovan Dijak fan. I think he's so tall, he's so big structurally, and he can do so many things that a man his size shouldn't be able to do. I love him,
dude. He's got a repertoire of a cruiserweight. It's amazing to watch.
That's a great way to put it. Yes, absolutely, he does. I mean, just that what was the match where he injured himself? Where he was doing he did the moonsault off the cage.
Yep,
unreal.
Shoot, who was that against? I know exactly which one you're talking about. Yeah, the things he does, in a guy that size, wow, just wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Oh, also on this show, we've got Mystico and Mascara Dorada taking on Templario and Esfinge. Janai Kai taking on Mila Moore again in a women's division match. I think they call that the featherweight division. And Matt Riddle defending the MLW title against Satoshi Kojima and Alex Kane in a triple threat. That's going to be an awesome one, too.
That'll be a good match.
Yeah. Like you said, say what you will about Riddle, but, man, he can go.
He can absolutely go.
Yeah. Where are we at here? So, also on Saturday, Real Shoot Wrestling is holding Headed for a Heartbreak free admission. Does everybody hear that? Free admission at the Harrison County Parks and Rec in Clarksburg, West Virginia. If you are in Clarksburg or around it, Saturday there is free wrestling. Go get it. Featuring Chris Onyx versus Pastor CeeLo in one of the most cluttered, and I know I say this with love to Real Shoot Wrestling, but cluttered because there's so many words in this match description. The graphic online describes this as the third match in a 3-match series. 2 out of 3 falls. Third fall is no DQ. My God, that's a mouthful. I don't know if the first 2 of these were 2 out of 3 falls too, or if this one is because it's the third, but that's a lot of 2s and 3s. But those guys will put on a good show, especially for free. You can't beat that. There's a gauntlet for the tag team titles featuring Misery Inc., the Sawyer Brothers, the Golden Boys, Saturday Night Special, and the Feasty Boys. I'm not in the loop on the Feasty Boys, but I want to check them out. Morgan Dash taking on Vance Desmond. Matthew Taylor defending the internet title against Rico De La Vega. And Ashton Day taking on Theo Strong for the heavyweight title. At Northern Wrestling Federation in Burkus Brewing Company, at Burkus Brewing Company in Ludlow, Kentucky, the Box Office Blondes will defend the tag team titles against James Cross and Bones. Into Madness will take on DC and Chiron. And MCE will take on Sinclair Octavius Bentley, SOB, and Beans in a $5,000 challenge. That'll be something to check out. I'm already big on Sinclair Octavius Bentley. I can tell you that right now.
As far as names go, that's a pretty good one.
Not a bad one, right? Out in Erie, Pennsylvania, at the Erie Sports Center, Big League Pro Wrestling is holding the Big League Pro Rumble, featuring a 25-man Rumble, obviously. A match between Rex Brody and Aiden Hall, where the winner gets to enter at number 25 in the Rumble. Bill Collier, who's the IWC champion, and Spencer Slade taking on mystery opponents. Hardcore Big League taking on Money Shot is another great tag team from the Pennsylvania area. And Nova versus Christina Marie. At OVW, well, let me ask you this. Do you catch up on OVW much?
I do when I can. OVW, lots of love to OVW. I mean, you're talking about, one of the original, feeder systems, man. They continue to put out a great product, have great, a great group of wrestlers come through there. What's not to love?
No, absolutely. And my only problem with Ohio Valley Wrestling is that it's a 2-hour show. And this sounds terrible from a guy who watches nothing but wrestling, but I watch a lot of weekly wrestling, and like fitting the Ohio Valley 2-hour show in with the other shows, it just never seems to find its place. Every time I do, it's awesome. I love OVW, but I just can't ever fit that long show into my week. But their world champion is Doug Basham, and he will be defending the title against Dustin Jackson in a match where Dustin's cutter is banned, so actually holds barred. And the reason I mentioned that is because I just heard JBL on a podcast recently railing against the no holds barred stipulation, and he was saying, "Look, what holds are barred anymore? There aren't any. There are no."
Right.
So who gives a shit if no holds are barred? There aren't any barred to begin with.
Well, apparently OVW cares, so
right.
they're listening.
That's
JBL,
it.
Somebody's listening to you, JBL.
Hey, I got to imagine Dustin Jackson's cutter must be a freaking weapon then, if it's that big a deal.
Be.
Also on that show, the only other thing I saw advertised is Beaches and Cream in a tag team match. Oh no, not just a tag team match, a Chained Carnage grudge match for the tag titles against Evans and De Niro. The Pro Wrestling Rebellion is holding their redemption show at Monkey Wrench Brewing in Sewanee, Georgia, featuring Dante Darko versus Axel Foley for the world title, Barry Morales versus Sid Ellington, Aaron Black versus Terry Lawler, and the Fade Area Militia versus the Northside Heroes. Love that name too. I'm not in the loop on any of these guys except maybe Dante Darko, but I'm interested in that. I'm going to check some of that out. The American States Wrestling Alliance is having Saturday Night Slam at Malabar School Gymnasium in Mansfield, Ohio, featuring Robbie Collins, the heavyweight champion, taking on Nick Brutal, the Universal Champion, in a champion versus champion match. Madman Fulton taking on the Great Akuma. Nightmare Nation versus Status Symbols in a 6-man tag. And Axel Fury versus the Mighty Asylum. My question to you, John, is do you remember Madman Fulton Insanity, or where are you on Madman Fulton?
Madman Fulton, definitely a big guy. Definitely remember him from Sanity. If I remember right, didn't he get hurt and get replaced by help me out here. Big Damo, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I remember him having a little bit of a run in, I believe it was TNA with Ace Austin. A big guy that can go. For whatever reason, he just hasn't quite found his niche, but he's got a great look, great moveset. So it could be big things coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Yeah, I've seen Madman Fulton a few times here and there on the indies. One of the shows when I went out to Wisconsin, he was there. and I believe he had a match that night. No, it was somebody else. Somebody else wrestled Sanjay Dutt that night, but or Rohit Raju, I mean. But it was he's really impressive in person. He's like Dijak. He's a big, impressive guy with a big stature, and he takes up a lot of space in the room. But then he gets in the ring, and he's another guy that kind of can move like a cruiserweight when he needs to.
Yeah, he's definitely got the ability to get around the ring. Maybe not quite as mobile as Dijak, but I mean he's definitely up there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is one I'm springing on you right now, but not necessarily because I'm thinking about going to the show on Saturday. And if you're free, let me know, and I will pick you up, and we can swing up to Bel Air, Maryland, for EWA Rage in a Cage. I've been out to a couple of EWA shows. The last one was at a outside in August of this past year, and about a year ago inside at the Bel Air Armory, which is where this one is. They put on some fun shows. It's a good crowd, a Bel Air crowd. Bel Air, hun.
Yeah, Bel Air, hun.
That's it. This show features Cayman MK. What's that?
Know it well.
That's it. Cayman MK versus Jet Chigori for the Cruiserweight title. Hero Napier and Johnny Malloy defending the tag titles against Old Man Young Boy and Saul Esparza. Forged by Fire plus Cody Bush and a mystery opponent after John Berg's injury. Taking on the stable of Pure Ignorance in an 8-man tag in a cage. All the matches are in a cage on this show. I didn't mention that earlier. This is Rage in a Cage, all matches in a cage. So that 8-man tag is going to be wild. Michael Anthony is going to defend the world title against Siler Mason in a match that the moment they announced it, I commented on Instagram and I said, if Siler loses, we riot. And that's where I stand on this one. If Siler loses, we riot. This is Siler Mason's time. I'm ready for the Siler Mason era to begin. And finally, I got Eel O'Neill taking on Andino for the Maryland title. Eel O'Neill's a guy that's been around the Indies a lot. Have you seen much of Eel O'Neill?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll see him on Saturday. We'll talk. Ruthless Pro Wrestling and We Love Wrestling are having a dual show called Strange Brew at La Pica Lounge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It looks like a hardcore show because Bobby V is going to take on Dr. Redacted for the WLW Deathmatch title. ICW No Holds Barred champion is going to be taking on Atticus Cogar is going to be taking on Eric Dillinger. And there's going to be a fatal four-way between Dex Royal, Onyx Andretti, Aaron Ashura, and Prince Hernandez, none of whom I am familiar with just yet, but I will be soon. In Jackson, Michigan, out my kids' way, I think Jackson might be close to where my kids are. I'll have to check that out and remember that when I go out there. American Wrestling Experience, which is too close to Indie Wrestling Experience for my liking, but we'll get back to the copyright issue later. American Wrestling Experience is having For the Love of Wrestling at the Music Box in Jackson, Michigan, featuring Chad Alpha versus Frank Stein. The Amish Giant, Perry Mast, taking on Great Tiger. The women's champ, so this is interesting. The women's champ, Ricky, teaming up with The Stranger to take on the U.S. champ, Kenny Urban, and Goose and Kenzie Black. Winners take all titles in this tag team match. Where was it they did that? Did they do that? Was that the Shawn Michaels Diesel thing?
I believe so.
Back in the day, didn't they win like the tag titles when they were already something, like a four-way, all titles on the line, like an In Your House, maybe?
I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah. Another place I'm looking to take you soon is Norfolk, Virginia, to see a VCW show at the Norfolk Masonic Temple. It's such a cool venue. I love the Masonic Temples are great because it's all basically bowl seating or amphitheater kind of bowl seating. And
Nice.
so everybody's got a good view. And the building itself is really cool. But anyway, so they've got the Delinquents defending the tag titles against the Golden Pinky Society. Brandon Scott taking on Chulo Montana for the Director's Blockbuster Bounty. Chris Slade versus the Greek god Papadon. Commander King defending the Virginia Liberty title against one half of the Hype, Myron Malone. The Boar taking on Rex Lawless in a heavyweight championship #1 contender match, while the heavyweight champion Devantes will be taking part in an interview in Luli's Lounge. I am waiting for Devontae and Rex Lawless. I caught Rex Lawless. Rex Lawless caught my attention about a year and a half ago, and I saw him at a VCW show in Alexandria. He's another big presence. Devontae is a big, strong guy. This is going to be, I mean, hell, they call Devontae the hoss of all hosses. I mean, it's going to be a hoss match for the world title, which I am. What is it they say? Shut up and take my money.
Right now, you're going to shut up and take my streaming because I'm going to have to find out a little bit more about these guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know. I think VCW, you have to check about a little bit of their YouTube, but there's not a lot online for them as far as a presence. If you find one, let me know.
I sure will.
Innovate Wrestling is having their second anniversary extravaganza at the beautiful Bobby Eaton Arena in Kingsport, Tennessee. First of all, dude, is there anything better than having an arena named after Bobby Eaton after all these years?
Listen, one of the best pure wrestlers I ever saw in my life.
My God, man.
If he'd have been a little better talker, can you say that he wouldn't have been at the top of just about every card? I can't.
No.
I mean, Bobby Eaton was the man.
Yeah,
absolutely the man.
Yeah, he
looked like shaped like my dad. Loved it.
That's right, man. But that Alabama Jam will get you every time.
Every time.
Oh my God, the Midnight Express. They were like the Midnight Express. That was my team when we were all little.
Just love the fact that they were always a pain in somebody else's side. You know what I mean? They were always messing up somebody's run. I loved it.
Yes, and that was back in the day when Jim Cornette said a bunch of ridiculous things, but nobody got their feelings hurt because they all knew he was just rambling to ramble. Nowadays,
he was selling, man, and people.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. He does say some pretty controversial things nowadays. I'm not gonna take that away from anybody. But back in the day, Jim Cornette was just pure fun. If you were into the heels, Jim Cornette was your guy. He had to be.
Oh man, come on! You run around with a tennis racket. What's not to love? A little Weasley guy. Well, listen. Jim's not a little guy, but you know what I mean. To have the little Weasley manager with the tennis racket and just if everybody wants to kick his ass, then he's doing his job right.
That's it. Hey, and that's a good segue too, because if you notice on the run sheet, who's appearing at this show, but Harvey Whippleman.
I see him.
Now look, I'm not gonna. So Harvey Whippleman is a guy that I kind of missed. Like I was there for the beginnings of Harvey Whippleman, but then my dad banned wrestling in the house because I, kicked a hole in the wall doing a suplex, and that was right around the time Harvey Whippleman and guys like Yokozuna started showing up in WWE, and that's kind of when I was on my way out, 92-ish, and so I didn't really see a lot of Harvey Whippleman then, but going back and rewatching all the Raws that I missed and catching up on him here and there. And then he's been all over the place. It's not just WWF. So he's just sort of popped up everywhere. I remember seeing him in TNA for a cup of coffee. So just a prolific guy who the story that I remember hearing now, it's just popping into my head about El Gigante, Giant Gonzalez. Did you hear about this? How Whippleman would help Gonzalez send home money to his family every month? And then lent him money when he was down on his luck to try to keep him propped up, I guess. That's pretty cool.
Oh, listen, I don't know. Did you ever? I don't know if you caught any of that, the Young Rock show when it was on. It was one of those shows where it was kind of But there towards the end, there was an actor. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was playing Harvey Whippleman. And just some of the absolute funniest stuff, with Whippleman and the things he was doing back then, and just seemed like he was the guy that the guys went to. Yeah. Harvey had his hand in everything, it seemed like, and I can see why he was as loved behind the scenes as he was.
Right. No, absolutely, I agree with you. I would like to know more about him. I'd like to see more of that period. That 91 to 93 period is just still lost on me. There's so much. I posted something in one of my wrestling groups, and I think there's probably 1,000 of them on Facebook that I'm in, but at one point asking people, what is the wrestling show that you've never seen and you're afraid to admit it? And mine is SummerSlam 92. I have never seen SummerSlam 92. I've never seen Davey Boy and Bret Hart. I've never seen it.
Wow.
And
I would have to I would have to think about that because there's a lot that I've missed. I would really have to put some thought on that one.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we got a couple more left, and then we're going to get out of here. Memphis Wrestling on the heels of their big Jamie Noble seminar, which if I was a wrestler, I'd sign up for. I'll tell you that right now. They're going to be having a Strayhorn Band Boosters fundraiser in Strayhorn, Mississippi, which we're all about. Good on them. Good on Memphis Wrestling for being part of the community, even as far down as Mississippi. Scheduled to appear, I don't think they've announced any matches, but scheduled to appear The Gun Show, WWE ID prospect Aaron Roberts, Psycho Simon, Makari Candy, Action Wrestling champion Tim Bosby, Big John Dalton, Reverend Ash Taylor, the Twins of Salem, and Zaya Wolf. Out in Troy, Missouri, still on Saturday, World League Wrestling is holding Show Out at the Harley Race Wrestling Arena, another named arena that is long overdue as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what else can you say about Harley Race?
The king. We were talking earlier about Colonel De Beers. Harley Race and what was it, Lord Littlebrook? That's who trained Colonel De Beers. So, those guys just Harley Race. One of the guys, Harley Race and Haku, as a kid, absolutely terrified me. Both of those men.
Yep.
I don't know what it was, the realism, what you want to say. And neither man would I ever want to meet in real life.
No doubt. Oh my gosh, no doubt. And and Harley Race, I mean, I know Harley Race as King Harley Race, or I did growing up. I didn't know anything else from before that. That's before my time. So not only did Harley Race, he was King Harley Race, went to WCW, managed guys like Vader. He had that whole but before all of that, before I was even paying attention to wrestling, this guy was a 7-time world champion. He was, just beating guys left and right. And the biggest names of the 70s, the Briscoes, the Funks. Harley Race was just blowing by all of them.
From everything I've ever read about Harley Race, not a man to be trifled with.
No, absolutely not.
And so, not a man that I would want to get on his bad side.
No. So maybe even now.
A legitimate, definitely from the era of legitimate tough men.
Absolutely. So let's see. So at this World League Wrestling show, we're going to have Atlas Armstrong taking on Raheem De La Suede, Mike Maverick taking on Jack Parker Jr., the Blazing Guns versus Dysfunction, Attila Khan versus Camaro Jackson for the heavyweight title, Cameron Brené versus Skylar Sparks in a women's match. Last show we're going to cover for Saturday, CCW Coastal Championship Wrestling, which I have a huge connection to because I reviewed their weekly TV shows on YouTube for 2 years. And I just think the world of this promotion. They're down in South Florida. They put on amazing shows with big name talent, but not only big name talent from outside, but they have so much. There's a lot of guys in CCW that I think of as CCW guys only. I don't really see them much anywhere else. And but they're amazing performers, and that's just, I don't know, I think that speaks to the promotion to be able to keep all those guys feeling like that's their home base. I think is a real accomplishment, especially with as many indies and as many companies and places to go as there are now. It's hard to find a tight-knit group like that. So anyway, so CCW is having Havoc and Hayes at Magnanimous Brewing in Tampa, Florida, featuring a WWE ID Showcase match between Bryce Donovan and Jack Cartwheel. Have you seen Jack Cartwheel? Were you at MCW when we saw him?
No, I don't believe I was with you at that time.
Yeah, he's another guy to take a look at for sure. He's made a couple of appearances in NWA too. I think he's great. He's real acrobatic, and the cartwheels are part of the performance, as the name suggests. But I think in a really cool way. It's a very gymnastic kind of performance. He's got great balance when he does these sort of acrobatic moves. Like he'll do a cartwheel and pause in midair on one hand before going all the way over. You know what I mean? That kind of core strength that I've never even dreamt of having. Also on that show, Rich Swann taking on Ricky Martinez, Dirty Devin Diaz versus Stallion Rogers, Eddie Torres taking on Matt Taven, And Jackal Stevens taking on the former Danny Burch in WWE, now Danny Briggs. Let's start with Taven. What's your opinion on Matt Taven? And how much have you seen him?
I saw a lot of him in Ring of Honor. I know he's over AEW now. If you ask me, really being underutilized. Matt Taven's got all the tools necessary to be a main eventer. I guess time will tell, right?
Absolutely, and I'm a big proponent, a big fan of Matt Taven as well. I like the Kingdom, the OG Kingdom, all the various versions of the Kingdom. But Matt Taven is a guy who even when he first leapt onto the scene in Ring of Honor, and I think he almost immediately won that television title. I thought there were big things in store for him, and it just never got. It's funny that he and Mike Bennett are together because they're kind of the same career trajectory, and that there should have been bigger things for the both of them, and why not?
And that's the things you and I are looking to find out. We're trying to find out the behind the scenes stuff, man. What goes on that what trips these guys up? What keeps them down? Especially when from everything you and I can see, these guys can talk, they can go, they can. It really makes you wonder what is that missing ingredient? What's that thing?
Right, I agree. Yeah, we're going to find out a whole bunch of stuff. You and I, we're going to be experts by the time we're done with this. So many names and so many people, but there's just so much to learn, man. Like you said, if we had the ability to learn all this stuff when we were kids, our life trajectory would have been different because we may not have ever come out of our rooms.
Exactly.
My God,
agreed.
My wife thinks I don't come out of my room enough now. So
my wife wishes I'd go back into my room more than I do. So
certainly another conversation for another day.
Trust
or maybe
me, guys,
not, actually.
By
maybe
myself.
Not. Yeah.
By myself.
Oh, shit. All right, last show on Sunday, February 8th, BMFX Wrestling is holding Love and Wrestling at the WEA Rec Center in Lafayette, Indiana, featuring a match for one of my favorite titles that I got to imagine is a rib on R-Truth. But Gigi Jacobs will be taking on Excalibur for the BMFK Interstate Hoosier I-65 Championship. If there was a 24/7 or a 7-Eleven in there, we'd be ready to roll.
Hey, man, I'd be down. Throw my hat in the ring.
Also on that show, Robert Catcham taking on Ashton Adonis, Edris Wolf versus the Casanova Jaden Knight, and also versus Kate Stevens in a triple threat, and a women's title match featuring Stella Buo, who is freshly ranked in the top 15 women's on Indie Wrestling Experience this month, will be defending the BMFX women's title against Rachel Armstrong. So that is a very in-depth look at what is coming up this weekend. Like I said, it's not usually that in-depth. It probably won't be next week again since we've run very long today. John, before we go, anything else?
No, man, it was a great first show with you guys. Man, love talking to you as always, buddy, and looking forward to this, man. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you guys.
Hey, man, thanks for coming on. I've really enjoyed this, and I am looking forward to doing this every week in the future. This is going to be so much fun. Next week, we will be back with Jessica McCumbers, the owner and promoter of Route 33 Wrestling out in Spencer, West Virginia. Miss McCumbers reached out to me about covering a show several months ago, and I couldn't make it out to the September show, and I was supposed to make it out to the December show, and my car broke down in the hills. Thank goodness there's someone on this podcast now who can back me up when I say I had to drive out through Cumberland to get to this place in West Virginia, and the hills, my car almost overheated so many times I gave up. So
it's a little up and down out there, my friend.
It's insane, and it's just it seems like every time I drive out there I have car trouble. So next time, March 1st, I'm going to rent a car. But in the meantime, we're going to sit down and talk about Jesse. We're going to talk to Jesse McCumbers about being the owner of one of the very few women-owned but not completely women-staffed. There's a lot of all women's promotions, but not a lot of women who own mostly men's promotions. Now, Route 33 has some women's matches here or there, but I don't think they have a women's title. So it's primarily a men's promotion, at least at this point. And so for a female woman to not only ascend to running a independent pro wrestling company, but also to want to do it. I am dying to know. In my research, I found that she did some film school and some stunt acting classes. So I am dying to hear the story of how that transitioned into pro wrestling, whether she had other contacts in the business, what it's like running a women-owned business in Western West Virginia, and what it's like running a women-owned wrestling promotion with a bunch of guys who are the talent. But on top of that, we will be talking about her last show in December, Mistletoe Melee, and how it sets up the next show on March 1st in Spencer, West Virginia. I don't know if that show has a title yet, but I will check that out before I interview Jesse for sure. We'll be talking about a lot of things, and as you can tell from the length of this podcast, I tend to go long, so Jesse might have to put a restriction on me as far as time because I clearly talk too much. Until next time, I guess let's just say, don't forget to follow us on social media. Instagram, Facebook, we are Indie Wrestling Experience. On Twitter and on Blue Sky, we are Indie Wrestling XP. The smug mug for all of the photos is under my name, Robert Richards. There is an Indie Wrestling Experience TikTok. All right, I'm not going to list them all. They're on the link tree. If you guys are in the loop on Linktree, just go look for the Indie Wrestling Experience, fully spelled out Linktree. It's got links to all of our social media. It's got links to podcast episodes. It's got links to our reviews. It's got links to our wrestling rankings each month. There's a lot of stuff on there for you to find everything Indie Wrestling Experience. We look forward to you doing that. Jon, I look forward to talking to you next week. Everyone else,
Hey, brother.
Everyone else will be back next time, and see ya.